We're all owned by the syndicate, body and soul. Or should I just say body?
Hello, filthy movie lovers, something weirdos, and anti-criterion bros, to the 32nd episode of The Sin Syndicate, the only podcast that knows exactly what your fantasies are and never leaves their undies in the living room. My name is Gentry Austin, writer and researcher, and I'm here with my co-host, adult film historian Casey Scott. And in this week's episode, we are having an affair. We must have an affair. We need it now. Yes, we are finally looking at a film made by the master of sex exploitation melodrama, the so-called Bergman of 42nd Street, a man who never met a love triangle he couldn't put through a pressure cooker, Joseph W. Sarno. One of the genre's most prolific directors, the focus of this episode will be a film Sarno made in 1967 for a pre-Distrapix duo of Arthur Morowitz and Howard Farber, a roadhouse, rumpus room, and second-story bedroom drama called Anything for Money.
I couldn't get over that place. Little girls running around next to nothing. Duke told me they'll do anything for money. And he meant anything. Where is this place?
Joining us this week are two special guests. Alex DeSanto, the star of the Severin box set, Gutter Auteur, The Lost Legacy of Andy Milligan, and Joe Sarno's official biographer, Michael Bowen. But before we bring on Mr. Bowen, now that I've thoroughly embarrassed you, Alex, let's talk news updates and the announcement of this brand new Milligan set.
Which is funny because admittedly, Stephen Thrower is really the star of that set. He has like the most featurettes and things for all four of them.
He's got interviews on each film, doesn't he? He does one of his.
Yes, he does.
How do you know how long they are? Are they his usual like 45-minute to an hour long ones?
I have only seen one, and that one was a jam-packed 20 minutes or so. So I can imagine the other ones are going to be the same. But I mean, typical Thrower fashion, it's fantastic. Fantastic work. Absolutely. So really can't wait to hear about what he discovered with some of the other films like Compass Rose and such. But yeah, folks, finally the films are coming out along with two of his unfinished ones, which I will say there's still something to take from both of those films as well. And also the documentary, which me and Steve are both in, and I will say that even though it's mostly a rundown of Milligan's life, even the most hardened Milligan fans will be able to will find nuggets to enjoy within the doc.
And you get to hear his voice.
Yeah, and we get to hear a complete audio interview, which is also packed with fantastic information too. There were some really great revelations in that interview. What was I about to say? Oh yeah. And with the doc, even like they uncovered things I didn't even think existed. They found more TV episodes that he was in back in the 50s. You get to see a lot more of Andy actually acting. And things like that. Yeah. I completely thought that those were gone, but UCLA always to the rescue, it seems these days. Had a bunch. And yeah, so besides Steven's extras, we've got my commentary for The Degenerates, which I will say is quite loaded. Unlike most sexploitation films, a lot of the cast were alive still. So I managed to talk to 5 of them.
Nice.
And the only 2 I couldn't was just, I'll just say age-related complications and stuff. But I got a lot of interesting stories about this production and how a lot of people got on Milligan's board, like Ann Linden, Robert Burgos, and things like that. And besides that, we also have the interview with actress Laura Cunningham, who had a very interesting perspective on the film because she was not an actress and was pretty much just plucked off the street and thrown into this movie and then thrown out after 2 weeks. So she has a very interesting perspective on this film, and she was a great source of information. On Kiss Me, we have both Natalie Rogers and Peter Rattray interviewed for this. I did not know they were going to be on this disc. I'm very pleased that they got on there because they both have some great memories associated with this film, some really funny stuff. And I have a little featurette, which might be a little bit redundant because a lot of my information came from Peter Rattray and Natalie Rogers, but maybe I'll find something in that thing nonetheless. And what? Oh, yeah, that also includes the interview with Andy. And then
the whole thing is on there.
Yeah, the whole 33 minutes. It's
okay,
like
good.
it's as like a commentary. Yeah, it's an audio option.
Fabulous.
Over
Okay.
Kiss Me.
Okay, great.
Oh yeah, fantastic stuff. Like I might have mentioned before, that interview did see print, but only a fifth of the interview got into print. Like there was so much more.
Where was it printed?
In that interview? I forget what the magazine was. It was printed it was in France.
A French magazine,
it was
yeah.
Oh, it wasn't the Fangoria one. Okay.
No. That is Bill Landis.
God.
No.
Okay, yeah, forget that.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's not bad because Andy mostly talking. Like, there's still some good stuff in that one because Andy was running that show, not Bill, for once.
Right. But there's no tape of that.
No. Wording-wise, it's very Andy's voice, though.
Yeah.
Backs up with other things he said, like in the bio and things like that. It's pretty accurate. Where is I going to go with that? Oh, yeah. So that interview, I think, was recorded around, to date it, around 1976, because Blood had been completed and in distribution, but Legacy of Blood gets no mention.
Okay.
So around 75 and 70 or 76 is when that interview was recorded. And yeah, other two extras for Compass Rose, House of Seven Bells, just Stephen Thrower and things. But yeah, folks. Oh yeah, and in the doc, you also get deleted scenes, so you get even more footage from these interviewers. Fingers crossed the Robert Burgos interview gets up on there. There were some people that didn't make the final cut, like one or two, or so. So yeah, folks, you would be hate to say it, but imbecilic not to get this release.
This thing is $35. $35.
And I will die on the hill that Degenerates and Kiss Me is some of Andy's best work as well. You will not want to miss out on this set. Yeah, you pretty much get 5 films for $35.
Pretty much.
All in all, including the doc, you get 5 films. I thought the doc was going to be a separate release. Like, they're really gifting us a good one. And hey, folks, the design is exactly like the other Milligan set. It'll look great right beside it.
Yeah, I said that right away. Yeah, I said that right away to you guys. I was like, oh, I'm so glad they kept that design. It looks so good.
Yep, it's the ultimate companion piece to that collection. And that's that with that. I'll say no more because I don't want to give away anymore. Just buy it, folks. Come on. Come on already. It's up for pre-order.
Now that I look at it, the website, at the very bottom, it says early bird special price, 1 week only. So maybe that 35 is going to jump. So
I don't know.
By the time you hear this, that might have been bumped up. So I got to order that right now. Well, after this is done.
Yeah, let's just pause the recording. Let me entry for a sec.
Yeah, I'm outing myself. I haven't ordered this yet. My bad.
It's okay.
Well, thank you, Alex. Yes, I am so excited for that finally being announced. I know you are too, and I know you worked super hard on it, so I am thrilled about it, and thrilled for you. And hopefully, there's hopefully the Milligan. There's more sugar in that bag somewhere. I don't know.
We'll see.
There's more flour in that bag.
I think we got lucky. I think let's just take what we have right now.
Yeah, let's
not get too optimistic.
I was about to say,
were lucky.
did I ever
we were lucky. We got lucky. Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't even think I ever publicly told my Filthy Five story. Folks, I contacted the German distributors of Filthy Five to try and find that. I thought they had 30 fucking minutes of that movie at the very least. That they'd lovely deposited into an archive. Like, the estate of this distributor was so nice in helping me about this. So thought I had found a good chunk, and I'm like, oh, this is great. This is fantastic. David Gregory gets the elements, scans them in, and there's only 30 seconds of Filthy Five footage.
Oh,
2 shots that were trimmed out for the German release. Just Anne Linden brushing her hair in a mirror, and then that character freak out, dropping his pants, heaving some ass, and climbing into bed with who I assume is Anne Linden.
And what's
That's
the rest?
it, folks.
Wow.
What else was on it? What was the 30 minutes?
It was 30
It was 2
seconds.
15-second shots. Oh, 30
it was
seconds,
not. It was not 30 minutes. It was 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah, I initially assumed it was incomplete. It was an incomplete negative or something like that, based on the way the archive laid out the elements and things, the way they were entered into their system. Mm-hmm. And then David gets all these cans, and it's like multiple cans for the same 2 shots, like negative. One thing looked like work print.
Yeah.
So like the 3 shots repeated 3 times.
Mm-hmm. I was like, I thought you got a 30-minute reel, but there was only 30 seconds of Filthy Five on it, and then there was some other junk at the end of it or something.
Mm-hmm. There was a very weird 40-second snippet of something from another movie, which, based on stills, kind of looks like it's from Gerald and Trader's Caught in the Act Naked. But I do not know. There's a random ass scene of some woman in a bed, and these men are taking turns going on in and having their way with her. It looks a lot like the lead in Caught in the Act. Why that's I don't know. I cannot tell you. I don't know why that's there.
Well,
at all.
Speaking of Lost and in Limbo, who wants to talk about?
Oh yeah, I found something. So I was trying to update the Lost and Limbo sexploitation list with notes of saying where stuff was, and because my list I have a separate list than Alex does, because I've added a lot of other stuff to that. Because stuff keeps showing up on Letterboxd. So I think that the suggestion was to search the UCLA archives using the word exploitation. And I found that is very limited. You kind of have to have a list of what you're looking for and go by name. So I found that they have a 16 millimeter negative, or is it 16 millimeter? No, it's 35, isn't it? Where's my list? I wrote the notes down. Let me double check. I know that I'm thinking of the 16 millimeter negative for Room 11, which is in Sweden. That's the Bunny Yeager movie. Here it is. God, there's so many movies on this list now. Ride Mister. It's a 35 millimeter print, not a negative. It's a 35 millimeter print that exists at the UCLA Film and Television Archive of Ride Mister. It's a full print. But there was something. What else did I find? I found that they had a negative to something else.
Bachelor Tom.
Oh, Bachelor Tom.
Yes,
keeping.
The 35 neg for Bachelor Tom.
They have the 35 millimeter negative to that too, which was not a best of. It was not one of our best ofs, but the original negative is there. All we've seen is an 8 millimeter version on something where it's Twisted Sex, so that is there. But I was just searching by name, and I found all of this stuff, and so I've updated this. Beauty in the Body. There's a print of that there.
Yeah, so the crux is here. The story here is Ride Mister was on our Lost in Limbo. Yes. I can't remember. I don't have the list in front of me. I think someone had it on their list.
Casey it was on my list.
It was on Casey's. Yeah, I think it was like
it was like number 2 probably.
Oh, maybe it was 2. Okay.
Because I went reverse chronologically.
Yeah, and it's a Tally Cochran movie. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's a big one.
UCLA is very difficult about releasing their materials if you are not a rights owner with paperwork to prove that you can take it out. So, because Ride Mister is an orphan film and it wasn't, I'll have to see what collection it's part of or who deposited it. That will depend on whether we can access it or not. It's not like a situation where it's the Dan Sunny collection that was deposited by Lisa, so Lisa can access it because it's her collection. Right. I don't know what collection this was a part of. So it's there. It's non-circulating, which means that it cannot be booked for rep screenings. So we can't screen it. They also do not have a reference copy on VHS or DVD-R, which they do for a lot of other stuff. Yeah. So it's there. I don't know what condition it's in, but I know it's complete, which is good.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. That's good news.
Well, yes.
Yeah, someone at UCLA figure this out.
Yeah, we need to make an inquiry. Yeah.
Yeah, we found a couple that day. That was a good day.
That was a good day. It was a good day.
Now just to get some of these things out.
Remind me, Casey, did Tally remember this movie at all? In any conversations you had with her?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. It never came up. Because I interviewed her before the trailer even resurfaced.
Yeah. And that's how we became aware of it, and how it ended up on our Lost in Limbo is because of that great trailer.
Right. Yeah, she wasn't aware of it.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, we will have to follow up on that or find someone who can, right?
I mean, there's nothing to really follow up on. It's there.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, yeah, who do we know with a connection in UCLA?
Like I said, UCLA will not let that out unless they didn't even let Stephanie Rothman take out prints of her movies. She directed them. She didn't deposit those prints, and she didn't own the rights anymore. So they wouldn't let her take her prints out. They are like a vault. You have to prove that you have the rights to take it. And you can't just say, well, it's orphaned. The guy's dead. Like, I don't even think that would work.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that Stephanie Rothman tried to get them out multiple times, and she's like, well, I directed these and I'm an alumni. Why can't I take these out? And they were like, no, you don't have any chain of title to prove that you actually own these movies. You made them. You don't own them.
Well, you know what? So, here's my idea. Maybe Lisa Petrucci can sweet talk them the next time she's in discussions about the Dan Sunny Library. She can sort of worm her way in there somehow.
Girl, you don't know UCLA.
I don't know.
I've known people who have dealt with UCLA for decades. It does not work that way.
Casey,
the Library of Congress is easier to deal with than UCLA.
Is Kinsey the exact same or even worse?
No, Kinsey is easier to deal with than UCLA. Yes, UCLA is
then let me mention, folks. Orgy of Revenge showed up there. House Near the Prado showed up there as well. So are all those buddy films? Room 11, Orgy of Revenge
11 is not there.
Is now here. No, but
Room
in
11
existence
is in
now.
Sweden. Yes.
In existence, I mean.
Yes, because Sextet is with something weird.
Okay, they all exist.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Kinsey's easy to deal with, except the issue is that they're understaffed, so they don't have the people to go retrieve that shit and do proper inspections and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's the issue with Kinsey. It's not that you can't get it out, it's that you have to rely on their timetable of getting stuff out. Yeah, Library of Congress is so much easier to deal with, which is crazy because Library of Congress, you'd think you'd also need to prove that you own stuff, but you can squeak the wheels easier with the government than you can with UCLA.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, UCLA they don't play around about that, especially because as an archive, if they let something out of their collection to the wrong people, that's major. They're like they care about their reputation and their security too much. I get it.
Yeah. Which is a shame because all these films sound really good. Folks, House Near the Prado is a really lavish political espionage.
If this was at a lab, it'd be way easier to get it out because, like I said, they like the Code Red guys got stuff out of labs all the time. When it's at an archive or an institution, way harder to get it out because, especially if they're nonprofit organizations, they could have their funding and nonprofit status yanked. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right,
you don't mess around with that.
Let's bottle that up.
Yeah,
everyone. At least we know it's into there. The wishing wells. Come on.
I know. we know it's there. The issue is that we're gonna have to figure out how to get it out, which I don't relish, but at least we know it exists. Yeah.
Yeah. I think their security is really high there. I just can't sneak in, unfortunately.
No. Yeah.
Can you imagine?
They don't fuck around, UCLA. Yeah.
What's the Secret Places update? We have a cast member.
We have another cast member.
Yes.
Charles Devlin once again identified. He was watching Massacre Mafia Style, and he recognized. Oh wait, I know this guy. This is the guy that played the dad, who babysitter Neil LaGraff had in her apartment, and he's credited on Massacre Mafia Style as George Angelopoulos. There's no IMDb listing for him, and trying to Google him and look in newspapers or anything else doesn't come up with anything so that could be a pseudonym too. But we at least know that he was an actor who potentially was using pseudonyms all over the place in low budget movies in California.
Mm-hmm.
So one more step to learning about secret places, secret things.
I went ahead
and watching your I said get to watch your 70s California movies, people. Keep your eye out. Anything helps.
Yep.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I added him to TMDB, so he should be showing up.
Oh, nice. Oh, did you add Kathy Hilton too? Because she's finally on there.
No, I didn't. Somebody else did.
Oh, somebody did. Okay, good. Somebody looked out because she's now finally added. Thank goodness. Yep. My little Kathy.
Yeah.
Love her.
Your Alice in Wonderland screening.
Yes, it's next Sunday. It's next. No, I'm sorry. It's this Thursday, the 12th, February 12th, 9:30 p.m. at Nighthawk Cinema in Brooklyn. It is sold. It is sold out. No, because I have to do it while I'm at work because I'm not paying Microsoft a subscription fee for fucking PowerPoint and Word. That's bullshit. This annual subscription stuff, which is stuff that you need, forget it. Mm-hmm. That I do Google Docs, I do Google Sheets, but there's no Google Point. I don't think there's anything else I can do to make PowerPoints that isn't Microsoft. So I have to do it at work because we have a work license. So I basically have to put these notes together at work during my lunch hour, essentially, because I'm doing slides with like nudity and shit in them. So I don't need people flagging me while I'm putting in pictures of like, Christine DeBelle and Terry Hall and stuff like that. So, but it is sold out, but as happens with all the Deuce screenings, tickets do open up the day of. They have standby line if you want to. If you're in Brooklyn already, just show up and see if there's any tickets. So it'll be fun. It'll be good.
Yeah,
and better than Corruption, which just I believe screened at Nighthawk with really no context. Even though Larry Ravine is here in New York, and so is Michael DeTore. Lord. They had no guests.
Yeah.
So my screening of that remains the superior one, and that's all I care about.
Yeah. And once again, folks, who knows when Alice in Wonderland will ever play again?
Never.
Who knows?
Never.
Yeah. Come on, everyone.
No one's programming this. Yeah.
I think
New Beverly should have programmed it, honestly.
Oh, Cinderella and Alice in Wonderland would have been a great double.
That would have been beautiful. Cinderella print exists. Harry Garrow has a print. I saw it at an Exhumed festival. It was great.
I think you're competing with another screening. I was trying to look up when it was.
On February 12th?
The Image. Yeah, The Image is getting another screening somewhere in New York.
Spectacle.
Spectacle is doing it.
Good. Yes. You know what? That's great. That's good to know.
I'm trying
to picture now how the Image would go over to an LA crowd.
But also it's Spectacle, so it's video projection anyway. Spectacle's fine, but also so compare a 35 millimeter print, which is super rare and apparently looks good, versus a DCP or video of the Image, which screened on 60 millimeter at Lincoln Center. So why are we screening it on video?
Okay, so the Image is actually you're not it's screening February 5th. It's screening Monday into the 9th, Sunday the 15th.
Screening multiple times.
And Friday at midnight, the 20th. And
so not the 12th. Right.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but it's like I would rather see a rare print that I'm never going to see again versus a 4K, which you can just buy the 4K.
Yeah.
From Melicine. It's fine.
Guys, note. There's a note at the bottom. This film does contain explicit sex. Beware.
Yes, it does. It includes a pissing scene.
Yes. Yeah. Pissed on a rose.
Why it shocked the audience when it was shown at Lincoln Center because the series was called This Is Softcore. Stupid. And then they showed the Image. And people were like, we're actually going to see pee coming out of her. And it was like, sorry, guys. This is technically a hardcore movie. Yeah.
I'd kill to sit with my back to the screen and just watch the audience the whole time. I was there. I was there with Marilyn Roberts, and Marilyn Roberts was telling me whispering all sorts of great stories to me during the screening, and I was like, "This is my dream." I got my own personal audio commentary while I was sitting there, and then she went up on stage to sit with Radley, and Radley was kind of like, "Oh, I guess I have to share the spotlight with the star of this movie," and I was like, "Yeah, you sure the fuck do," because the other star of the movie you left in France and abandoned her. Because you're an asshole. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of tea about Radley. Will on the Radley episode, I'll spill it. But just until then, he is a terrible person. Yeah.
Give us this last correction here to the New Beverly calendar.
Apparently, the New Beverly confirmed that the Monica they're showing is the Janus Films print Summer with Monica. which is not the Kroger Bab version, which I would be so excited to see. But apparently, either a print doesn't exist, or they just, because Janus has the rights, they had to book that version because that's what Janus has.
Yeah.
I still recommend that. Do I recommend that screening? I guess I do. It's Inga, and Monica it's fine. I need to rewatch it. I don't love it, but I haven't been angering myself by checking Letterboxd to read reviews of screenings, reviews of movies that have been screening in February so far.
Yeah, I've read a few, but nothing. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm preserving my peace.
I've been talking to our friend Dino about it a bit, kind of just watching what we can hear or through the grapevine regarding turnout, and
I have to ask Dino. Usually, well, John Koska is a friend of mine, and he usually goes to their screenings. And then I need to ask my friend Dan if he went to any of them. I haven't gotten any recon about how their screenings have been going.
Yeah, but Sean Baker was at the Antonelli double feature.
I saw that, and of course, typical. He logs it, has no opinions of them. Just like, okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah. Someone posted. Oh, was it Larry Kazuski?
Was that a new review? I don't know if that was.
He did. He saw it, and he it was for I think it was for Divine Nymph. I don't think it was for Wife Mistress, where he said he's never really understood the appeal of Laura Antonelli, and I was like, yeah, no, she's not Ornella Muti or Gloria Guida. Like, if you're gonna have a sexy movies, they're better. Yeah, I prefer both of them. Can you imagine if they had a print of To Be 20 and showed To Be 20?
That would be amazing.
That would be crazy. Well, depending on what version they're going to show.
Yes, that's true. The goofy comedy version, or like
that's the first version I saw, and I loved it. That's the first version I saw, and then I saw the real version. I was like, oh my god, I like both for different reasons. But great movie.
All right, well, let's bring on Michael Bowen. See if he's ready.
You went into my room. You rummaged through my closet for those. How dare you? Oh, you must really fly some fantasies.
Sorry, I should have been here 5 minutes ago. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
No,
you were exactly on time. It's 2:00. How are you feeling?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Peggy didn't appreciate maudlin behavior, and it's better that we talk about who she was and what she accomplished. And years from now, when people watch this, they won't quite appreciate that. Be hard to metabolize the fact that we just found out she died like less than an hour ago. So,
yeah. Because you messaged.
She was the most extraordinary person, and outside of that, such a good friend to me that I'd rather do a little premature celebration of life for her than postpone it. So.
Right. Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah, that's what I said to Casey as well. It's just like, we all process this differently, and maybe you want to sit with us and talk about it a bit. So thanks for joining us. And and sorry if our show notes were a little overwhelming, but
not at all. You guys know a lot about the subject, and there's a lot you'd like to get into, but just from a structural point of view, and even from a practical point of view, I mean, I've been working on this stuff for a long time, but also I haven't been working on it for a long time. There's a lot that's gone on in recent years. So I'm trying to loop back to information that's 20, 25 years old in some cases. And I might disappoint you when it comes to some real specific things, but I think I have good things to share in general, and I'm full of unexpected tidbits. So fire away,
incredible, exactly.
Fire away at will. But I'm embarrassed to say, but also glad to say, dozens of hours of interviews, not just with Joe Sarno, but with people who worked with him. Lots of people who worked with him. And the majority of them to this day have not been transcribed, a project that I'm only just engaging with. So I haven't listened to some of them since I conducted those interviews on the phone like 20 years ago.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
I just posted a photo of Joe and Peggy from the Torino Film Festival, which I attended with them. There was a tribute to Joe. And, I'm terrible with dates, right? I have a PhD in film history, but I don't remember any dates. And
yeah,
I look on the picture and it was taken in 2006. So it's 20 years ago,
God.
right?
Wow.
Yeah. And, these things are getting weird. I turned 62 recently. I feel 32.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
Probably seems weird to people who are 22, but 32, boy. And all of this happened a long time ago. And, I've known the Sarnos since 2001. So it's 25 years. So it's you start to have, it sneaks up on you, but you start to have some history.
Wow. 25 years. Yeah. I just did the quick math. Wow. Good anniversary.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And Peggy, interestingly, was literally almost exactly my mother's age. They were both born in October of 1938. And in a lot of ways, although it was playful, personal, she was not my mother, but there was a way in which she was my New York mom. And she was very supportive of me through many personal episodes in my own life. In other words, I didn't call up Peggy 5 times to ask her where they shot this movie, et cetera. We had lunch all the time. I had Christmas dinner with Joe and Peggy on many occasions during Joe's lifetime, at his birthday. It was a personal relationship, and I was gifted with the opportunity to be invited into their family for many years, and they were wonderful, wonderful times.
Yeah, I think you said in your essay that was in that the bed and how they make it. You were at their house quite often, and it was almost like therapy sessions for you as well. It was just,
very much so. I'd be interviewing Joe, and then he'd be asking me what's going on with me, and I'd, all of a sudden it's like he's my therapist, hearing about my issues with graduate school and relationships and people in general. But he was that kind of guy. He was a listener more than a talker by nature, and I'm more of a talker. So he seemed to like that. And Peggy also was very good at listening. We'd go to lunch. She'd tell me about her 2 and 3 aches and pains, and then she'd say, "Now, what's going on with you?" And I think she loved the gossip part of it. She was very into. I went through a divorce at that time. I'm not well known, so it's not public knowledge, but it's not a secret. And she was there for me when I was going through those issues, et cetera. So it was a very personal relationship, and she was a wonderful, wonderful person, and very lively. Very fun-loving, but also, a very no-nonsense person. She was not a sentimental person, and I think I said this to Casey earlier when we were texting before the show. She would not want me to be maudlin about her passing. When I heard the news, I had, a moment by myself, but she would not want people to be sobbing and weeping. She would want to be remembered for the things that she accomplished and for the really amazing person she was. She was also a total drunk. Peggy drank so much booze, it was unbelievable. And I used to give her a bottle of very good whiskey at Christmas time, but I stopped doing it at one point because I'm like, I'm contributing to the destruction of her liver. Like, she was about 4'3" and weighed 70 pounds, right?
Tiny. Yeah.
Tiniest little bird of a person you can imagine. So if she had 2 shots of bourbon, she was wasted, Having said that, I never knew her to be intellectually or emotionally dysfunctional, even when she was drunk. Like, I swear to God, she could have had 8 glasses of booze, and if you cut your finger, she'd take you to the hospital. Like, she was that kind of person. She was, she used to go on and on about, "Oh, Michael, I'm drinking so much," but I never knew a drunk who was as competent or as responsible as Peggy Sarno.
Wow.
Well, she's a heavy smoker too, all her life, wasn't she?
She loved smoking. She smoked these long, dark, cigarillo type cigarettes are like Moors. You guys are too young to remember all these horrible 70s cigarettes, but but they were cigars. She would buy them around the corner from this tobacconist. And I don't remember how she got into into the cigars, but they were skinny little, Clint Eastwood cigars.
Oh my God.
Peg is a cigar chopping producer. It's such a visual.
Serious stuff. They weren't like big. Like I think people said Shelley Wilson, the famous, a porn theater entrepreneur and producer, that she smoked real cigars. I think. I think Harry Reams, God rest his soul, told me stories about playing cards with Shelley Wilson, smoking cigars like a movie.
Oh, he played with her? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's wild.
There was a running card game. He said Jamie Gillis would go sometimes, and they would play up above her restaurant. But Peggy smoked these little skinny, dark cigarillo type things.
Wasn't Peggy sort of famous for her smoking? She was photographed by Tom Wesselman?
Painted by Tom Wesselman.
Painted, yes, sorry.
A well-known 60s so-called pop artist, a kind of modernist, minimalist painter who did images that looked like they were out of comic books, basically was just blown up sections of a panel from a comic book. And Peggy's mouth, her lips, and a cigarette hanging out, she was the model for that image. I think she might have had a print of it. I think toward Joe's final days, or maybe shortly after he passed, they might have sold that print. It was like something that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's a famous painting.
Yeah. And she came from, I want to say something about her mother, Phyllis Silverman, who was an amazing lady I got to know well. As Phyllis lived to be about 104. Literally, I think that's the right age. I was at her house when she lived alone up to the point where she was about 100 in an apartment, and you had to walk up, no elevator, walk upstairs to a second floor apartment. And then it was like a 2-story apartment, so you had to walk up to the bedroom. So she's 100 years old living in this walk up. And she threw a birthday party for Peggy when she was 100 years old. And this lady served me dinner, 100-year-old lady, for Peggy's birthday party. So,
wow.
I sort of figured, Peggy would live forever too.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons it's quite shocking to me. It just never occurred to me that she would just go. I figured, she's 95 now. That would be the story.
Yeah, you wanted to think that she's going to make it to, how old her mom was, at least.
Yeah. I mean, she lived a harder life than her mom with the drinking and the smoking. Although, I mean, she did it with class, right? It's not like she was hanging out at the bars, you know what I mean?
Right. She wasn't on the Bowery or anything like that.
No.
Right?
No. It was nothing like that. But I mean, it was a serious issue. I'll tell you a story too, which I think is funny. The first time my ex-wife and I went to their apartment for dinner, and this was shortly after I met Joe, and I can tell you about that. They invited us over, and they had a very, very New York apartment with a fairly open floor plan thing with some bedrooms off the side, but big kitchen, big dining room, living room conjoined. And we're sitting there, and Peggy is getting more and more loaded. And Joe obviously didn't like it because we just got to know him, and he wants to make a good impression or something. I guess I'm reading it that way. So I guess we had finished eating, and there was some kind of a dessert waiting. It was a very nicely planned dinner. And Peggy is talking, and because she's a little bit loaded, she's going on a bit. And finally, Joe sort of stomps on the table and he says, "Peggy, get the dessert." Like, we've finished eating for 15 or 20 minutes, and he's been waiting for her to be a good hostess and get the next course. And she gets up, and she walks towards the kitchen, which meant she had to walk behind him. But my ex-wife and I could see her as she was walking to the kitchen, and he's facing us. And she walks behind him, and she turns around while he's looking at us, and she says, "You did." It was like, who's afraid of Virginia Woolf,
Oh my God. I would never would have thought of them like that, but that's great.
Well, I mean, they were very, very bonded. Okay. But they were an old couple who had been through a lot and were very different in many ways. And Joe was quite old, and he was in his own world in many ways. And she would never, she did not hate him. But she wanted us to know that she was not going to be bossed around by this guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was quite an evening. You know, that was so memorable. And we're just sitting there trying to be on our best behavior, but we're like, oh boy, it's like we're in a movie here. You know, I mean, there was drama in that house, but not of a bad kind. It was more like two people who are living life in a very emotional way. And Sarno himself was deeply emotional. He was a real crier. You know, he'd cry at the drop of a hat over things. It was a very emotional household, but it was full of energy, full of life. Like you wanted to be there. I mean, that didn't put me off at all. I became a regular feature over there. You know, I wanted to be there all the time. And I had the excuse, fortunately, of having become a graduate student, which theoretically authorized me to study dirty movies in New York City.
Yes, exactly.
And even though there you go. Casey knows all about it. And even though I was technically working on the career of Doris Wishman, which is why I even reached out to Joe in the first place. I quickly realized that somebody needed to start documenting Joe's career. So I created this opportunity to go sit with him once a week in the afternoon, and we would just record his own memories about his life and what he could remember about the films. Even by the time I met him, I would say his memory was not great because he was older. But also, I think Joe was not the kind of guy to live in the past or store away memories. He was always about the next thing in his career. You know, a guy who made, Casey would remember better than I, 6, 7, 8 movies in certain years. This is a guy who's
nonstop,
always on to the next thing. Not
those
sitting
are a lot of films to memorize.
Right. Not sitting around saying, where did we shoot that? Or how did that, what was the budget on that film? Like that stuff you couldn't get out of him. He didn't even know. I don't think he knew.
I think we saw some of that energy in the Sarno's documentary.
Sure, that great doc.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, they were, they were that classic older couple, right, where they didn't need to be polite to one another. Sometimes,
exactly.
Right.
And she used to tell me that, and she used to say to other people too, that she was actually very grateful that I came along at that point in their life because Joe was not making films anymore, and he really had almost nothing to do. So my engagement with him gave him something to do, and I was very grateful for the time I spent with him and got involved, as some of you may know, in helping to find some of his missing films and get them released. And we did some screenings in different places, and Joe went to the screenings and he received some of the attention that, he had not received as an auteur filmmaker earlier in his career. And I felt great about that. And I think he enjoyed it. And I don't think he lived for celebrity in any way, or he wouldn't have followed the path he followed. But I know that he was glad to know that people appreciated his work, got him out talking to people. I'm glad he knew before he went that people understood what he was trying to do and appreciated what he was trying to do. And I'm grateful that I got to play a role in getting him some of that attention.
I know in that documentary, one of the painful things for me when watching was just seeing that Joe, didn't make any money off these movies.
No,
a lot of his money came from Peggy, right?
He made a living. Yes, I'll say yes and no. He made a reasonably good living as a filmmaker because he worked so much. Yeah. So you think of making money off of movies like, I produced that film and we made $500 million, that kind of that's the narrative about filmmaking in America, that it's a big hit and you make a bunch, and then, somehow or other, you never have to work again the rest of your life. Right. You have some financial advisor who sinks all your money into some investment and you go live in Connecticut. Right. Joe was a workaday director. I think of him as being closer to the kind of folks who worked in TV. And New York was ground zero for TV production, like in the 50s, and Joe was kind of starting to get around the edges of filmmaking at that time. So he's more like that, just it's a job. You go and you show up for work and you do your job, and it's not like, oh, now you're getting nominated and you're going to that. It wasn't that kind of world. And he did okay, I would say, financially. Peggy's family had I'll call it upper middle class money. Her father was a lawyer. So Peggy didn't need money, but I would not say that she was supporting Joe up until the final years when Joe literally had nothing but Social Security.
Yeah.
Because he hadn't worked for anybody to produce a pension, and he was not the kind of guy to invest money. So Peggy was, and it was not easy because her mother, who was living to be 1,000, wasn't graciously stepping aside to leave Peggy her inheritance. This was
stepping aside, so to speak.
Yeah, this was a constant theme in their household. I mean, I'll tell you another story. It gives you a sense of Peggy. She needed money, so this was maybe 15 years ago, before the so-called great financial crisis, when they were throwing around all of those no-interest credit cards with the cash advances. She was calling and getting cards in Joe's name. And Peggy had a slightly deep voice for a woman. Her own voice was, so she would say, "This is Joe Sarno." And she would get all these cards in his name because she was maxed out on credit.
Oh my God.
And getting these reverse mortgages and that kind of stuff. So I don't want to make it sound like Peggy was just some heiress who had limited money. Her mom would give her a gift of a big chunk of money every year, but they had expenses living in a co-op apartment, which they owned, and just daily life. And Peggy would have to come up with money herself. And she was resourceful. And I felt bad for her because she had, I would say, I hope you'll agree with me, we all hope our parents will live to ripe old ages, but she had a reasonable expectation she wouldn't have to wait till Phyllis was 104 to sell those. Her mom had a Milton Avery painting in her living room. I don't know if people know who Milton Avery was, but that's like Museum of Modern Art level modernism. Wow. And it sold finally when Phyllis was gone for a lot of money. That provided finally gave Peggy a cushion so she could breathe. Yeah. But that was after Joe was gone, So it wasn't not all fun and games. There was a lot of struggle, even financially, in their household. And Joe didn't care. As long as he was working and paying and don't forget, when Joe bought that apartment, I think he told me, but it was like $15,000 or something. Yeah. A figure that nobody could even conceive of anymore.
I mean, they were in that apartment till the very end, right?
Forever.
Till the very end. Yeah. Joe left for a period of time. He had been married to somebody else before Peggy, and he had lived in that apartment with it was actually his second wife and their kids. In fact, do you want to see something?
Yes.
Let me see if I can get this.
Always yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know that face. Wow.
That's Joe and his son Billy and his daughter Eleanor in 1960, before he would have known Peggy.
Oh, wow.
And, it's obviously Easter.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see some people that look like they're in a church choir or something.
And if you're from my generation, that's how you dressed kids on Easter. There are pictures like me from that. So people can get their head a little bit around pre-filmmaking Joe Sarno taking his kids to Mass on Easter Sunday.
Love that. I hear Sarno and I think Catholic.
What's that?
I hear Sarno and I think Catholic. So I think Christian. Yeah.
Well, again, there's and I'm the guy who's contesting it in some way. There's there are contested claims about his heritage. His father was certainly Italian, of Neapolitan descent, from Naples, not from Sicily. And like many New York Italians who also make some claim to having had organized crime connections, which Joe did claim. But his mother was not Italian, and Joe used to claim that she was Jewish, and she may well have been Jewish, probably almost certainly ethnically Jewish. But after Joe died, I had a long interview with a childhood friend of his who revealed that he had never, ever known Joe's mother to identify as Jewish, and even knew that she went to the Lutheran church. So I don't really know what the story is about Joe's upbringing from the point of view of religion, but he claimed his mother was Jewish, but he also made other claims that have turned out not to be rigorously factually correct.
Sure. That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. And so we'll say that there's a little shadow of doubt cast over, but I would say the notion that he was growing up with matzo ball soup and stuff, I think that's a little dubious, but he made it sound that way for sure, because so many of the folks he worked with in the New York film industry in the 60s were Jewish, that he wanted to be, along with the gang, I would say, to a certain extent.
Yeah,
his mother actually was Jewish, according to old school Jewish standards, that makes you Jewish. Doesn't matter if your father's Italian and some kind of pseudo mafioso, right? No, he maybe legitimately made such a claim from certain ethnic point of view, but I never knew him I know nothing about him going to church, and I have the feeling that it was the mother of his children who was probably interested in taking the kids to church and that kind of stuff. He was, to my knowledge, quite agnostic when it came to organized religion. For sure.
Well, that opens up a question that I had for you, which is with regard to Joe's comedy films. He often has sort of that Borscht Belt style of humor. So it's where did he get that from? Was that just people he was hanging out with, or?
I mean, it's a good question. Again, I have never heard that he spent any noteworthy amount of time as a young person, right, with people of New York Jewish heritage. If you're trying to figure out if he hung out with a bunch of comedian, young Jewish comedian types, right? His best friends were Milton Berle or something. It wasn't, to my knowledge, he was playing football at Amityville High School. There was a little Jewish community there, but it was not a Jewish community. In fact, it had noteworthy, some people might not know this, that area in the South Shore of Long Island had noteworthy mob connections because the liquor boats would drop off bootleg or smuggled Canadian liquor would come in there. Al Capone lived in Babylon, which is like the next town over during the period when Joe would have been a little kid. So there's some reason to think that his father may have had some loose connections. He was definitely not anything like a mafioso. I've scoured the mafia history, but having said that, Joe knew somehow got to know some noteworthy people with serious organized crime connections, including one of the Gallo brothers, a name that people can look up. But the Gallos were quite well known in the early 60s. They were almost like Robin Hood mafia guys. They became well known in the popular press. There was a fire in the neighborhood where they lived and had their clubhouse, and they saved some family, like a Puerto Rican family, and they became like heroes on the cover of the New York Post and stuff. At the same time, that there was this massive campaign to keep them from getting murdered by other mafia guys, because they had kind of declared a war on some very serious factions within the New York mafia, and they were holed up in this place trying not to get killed by other mafia guys. There was this massive contract out on them. Joe became friends with Albert Gallo, who financed one of his films, and I know that from somebody else who worked on the film, not just from Joe. And then later on, and we'll get back to the comedies, maybe if you're thinking of Deep Throat Part 2, which I love.
Which I have mentioned that you are that film's #1 fan on this podcast several times.
I love that film. I love it.
We've had that conversation.
Yeah, and in part, Gentry, because it's such a good manifestation of Joe's sense of humor. You can see it a little like in Touch of Genie, if you know Touch of Genie.
Love that one.
Yeah, I like that more.
Very fond of the. Well, there's something about the. To get a sense of my aesthetics, Gentry, there's something about the eminently failed sense of Deep Throat 2 that is a lot of what
I understand.
Tickles me about it, right?
That makes sense.
But also knowing Joe, and I watched all or most of that film with Joe because I think I was involved with it getting released onto video. Oh, he would laugh deep and slap his thigh, laugh, and it's so funny because he wrote the fucking jokes, so he's laughing off at his own bad jokes, right? I thought that was fabulous. He just thought
it was so crazy.
But I will say this too, maybe to put another spin on it. Maybe he was enjoying seeing the jokes being delivered by the likes of Mark Stevens, Linda Lovelace, Harry Reid. I mean,
Chris Jordan. Chris Jordan was always funny. Yeah,
very good. You've got the A-list. Also, I'm blanking on his screen name. Levy Richards, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had the A-list, first generation New York porn team there, like the golden age of porn A-list in that movie. And what are they doing? Shtick comedy, sort of the worst kind, but
so
also
ridiculous.
Also of the best kind. And I could pop that film in tonight and watch it and really enjoy it.
Oh my God!
Also, I'll say a couple other things, and I hope I'm not slipping around too many places. But
no, we love it.
No, yeah, this is very
good. This is very much what we do. I'm
a tangential thinker and tangential talker.
We all are too. Yep, that works.
I mean, and this is where you start to know. It's funny how people agree about some things until you get into the weeds, and then all of a sudden you start disagreeing about specifics. So you may think this is crazy, but I think Linda Lovelace does a terrific job in that film. She was not an actress. She was some swinger's girlfriend who got into stag loops and then accidentally becomes the most famous porn star in the world, right?
Right.
She was never expected to act, never asked to act, and I think she does a very good job, and she's pretty loose. And I felt a little bad that Joe actually criticized her a little bit sometimes in our conversations, that it was tough to get a good performance out of her, because I thought she did an admirable job. Again, you have to see all of this stuff in context. I think you understand that. We're not talking about movies that have multi-million-dollar budgets and all kinds of people working with you on the sidelines to prep you, and none of that. You've none. So you're getting pretty much what people can manage to do in that moment. And that's one thing I love about these movies, that immediacy of like the accidental successes mean more to me than rehearsed successes. Is that that makes sense?
Right.
So yeah. I thought she was really fun and did kind of a cool job. And I'll say one other thing about that movie. Oh, and I have just a couple tiny show and tell things, but I was for other reasons looking at this stuff recently, so I set it aside.
Yeah.
Here's a soundtrack single.
Oh, very nice.
Right? And it's released, by the way, it's on the Brian label. So Brian, right? So they made a label. In fact, there's another one they put out, Deeper and Deeper, also. So there were two singles. The soundtrack to that film. Are any of you guys familiar with it?
It's great. That's one of the only things I kind of like about it. Yeah,
it's an astonishing, incredible soundtrack.
Very good.
And if you go take the time to check out who worked on that soundtrack, okay? Two of the guys who wrote some of those songs were founding members of the famous '60s pop group Jay and the Americans, who had like half a dozen singles, right?
Yeah, I love them. Yeah, okay.
And also, if you don't know who Tony Bruno was, and there's no reason to know, like go to Discogs and look up the credits for the Deep Throats, and then start linking around. Find out who Tony Bruno was and find the couple albums that he made. And I interviewed Tony. He was a real character. He was mobbed up, man. He was. Buddha Records. Somebody, if they haven't done it, they should
Buddha.
Read a book
Buddha's
on
great.
Buddha Records, right? Buddha Records was a mob operation, and
that explains a lot.
And it was tied in with the old jukebox rackets. Okay, Tony was generous enough to tell me all this stuff. So there's a connection there that explains maybe why. And Jay and the Americans, to my knowledge, those guys are, they're not mob guys, but they work kind of closely with that scene. And there's wonderful music. Laura Green, who sings that la 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 la. She was a great jazz singer. I mean, that is a super professional, inspired, groovy, fun, awesome soundtrack. And anybody who likes 60s period music should really dig it. So that's another thing. It's really weird about that film, because as you know, most of the music is no budget, library music.
Right.
Howard Farber beating on a drum. That's Joe Sarno's soundtrack. That is way out of left field for a Joe Sarno movie. And I still sometimes pull out one of those songs to this day and listen to them. I love it. Yeah. So those are some of my crazy but specific reasons for liking the film. It's personal, but I think there are good things about it. And then it's, color, 35 millimeter, scenes shot in Central Park. I mean, there's some cool stuff about it. Outside of that, if you want to say it's terrible, I won't criticize you. But if you go to a movie theater someday and watch it with me, we will have fun. I promise you.
Well, I would do, because I feel like I would only see that in a movie theater if I got to see it with you, because then I feel like it would be an infectious experience, kind of like, okay, through osmosis, I'm going to understand why this is so good.
We would have fun, and also, I mean, it's not like I knew everybody, but like Levy Richard Levert, what was his name? I got to know him. I used to go have beers with him. A sad but very sweet, lovely guy. I mean, there are some people in the film that I know, so it was fun. This, by the way, I'll show you this too.
Oh my God, I want one of those so bad. Mr. 10.5, the member of the Mark Stevens 10.5 Club. I love that.
Very generously given to me by a guy older than I am, who was really around as a grown up in the 70s. Going to those theaters, and he knew Mark at the time.
Yes. Wow.
But I mean, Mark is in that movie. It's just so funny. Yeah. I mean, and the whole, the misconception of the whole. And another thing that's cool about it, right? And I don't want to make the whole show about Deep Throat Part 2, but we can loop back to films you care about. But Butchie Perino, who bankrolled that film, right? So he's a major made man type figure in New York organized crime, but also was funding sexploitation movies in the late 60s and was interested in filmmaking. If you're just gonna rob 18-wheelers at the airport, you go do that. You had to be interested in movies as a mafioso to make movies. Does that make sense? There are other ways to steal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what she obviously cared about filmmaking, and people like Charlie Palmello, who was part of his orbit and worked with Joe also. I mean, we're talking about these guys over here, right?
Right.
They were good guys to know, they were good guys to know. Joe was shooting something on location, a producer. What's the film? The Switch. You guys know The Switch with Mary?
Oh, yes. I still need to see it. That's the one I think Gentry tells me to see.
I was just telling him. Yeah,
I think I only have it like on a Greek videotape or something. It's one of those super obscure films. I think it was that film, and because I think I remember the producer, who's not well known, but he said they had some trouble because somebody from a film union, from the craft union, showed up when they were shooting on the street and was giving them a hassle. And Charlie, right? And the link between New York mafia and organized and some of the unions. I'll say some of the unions. Charlie said, "Come here, let's walk around the corner and have a conversation." I think we both know some people. And 5 minutes later, he came back and nobody bothered them again. That's the story from the producer, not from Joe. Deep Throat, produced by Butchie Perino, everybody, Deep Throat is Deep Throat, right? But don't forget, in 1972, despite the fact that everyone says, that made hardcore theatrical features legitimate, right? No, it did, but it didn't happen overnight. That film was in court every other month somewhere. If you owned that film, or if you were distributing that film was the biggest pain in your ass for 2 or 3 years. Now, people made money, right? But it was a legal nightmare, right? So the idea to make Deep Throat Part 2, right, this R-rated movie with Linda Lovelace, was because there were so many places that still could not play that movie. And also they got Europe. And in fact, there's an Italian import of that film that has some more sex scenes that are in the American version. A couple things got trimmed even for the U.S. release because they were so worried about taking a bust on that film. So that's another reason it fascinates me, is the way it factors into the big story about Deep Throat and how they were going to try to double dip on Deep Throat, because now they could book it into drive-ins in the South and that kind of, and people get to see.
You got the Deep Throat name,
And when they released it in Italy, it was released as La Gola Profonda, as Deep Throat, and then later people figured it out, and then when they finally loosened the laws in Italy later in the 70s, so you could show porno, they released it as La Gola Profonda Vera, the true Deep Throat.
Very nice. We love that.
That makes sense.
For 4 or 5 years or whatever, people in Italy thought Deep Throat Part 2 was the Deep Throat.
That's really crazy.
And I've got a great, I've got wonderful, the poster for that, the Italian, the big 2-sheet posters from Italy, they're giant, right?
Yeah. Those huge panels.
Oh yeah, they're great artwork on them. They're really I've got all that. That's another story, but I have Sarno's posters, not just from America, but every country where I ever found they could be distributed, from Sweden, from Japan, from France, from Italy, from Germany, from England, the quads. It's fun. I'm looking for a permanent home, but they got to pay me.
With the Joe Sarno archive.
Someday it'll find a place.
Alex, you want to start that up?
I know.
Oh God.
Let's get a Kickstarter going.
Alex, right. It's already exists. It just needs a building.
Yep.
Okay.
And either I need a big check or get cut in the proceeds, but it's here.
Right.
Proceeds. Okay. Have to get a museum involved then. Have to start charging
all of the stills I have. A couple hundred stills from Joe's film.
Oh no! Don't start talking about press books, please. Please don't.
I've got all the press books. Yeah, I could show you my list of the ones I don't have. Which it's weird how some never materialize because I look for them to this day.
Yeah,
I think that what were some of the hardest? The Switch was very hard to find anything for. What's hard to find stuff for? Misty, like those final things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what you guys think about Misty, but this is the end of Joe's career.
It's great.
But to redeem myself from the Deep Throat 2 thing, I mean, Misty to me, when I saw that movie, which was missing, I was part of it to find it. I cried. I'm not even embarrassed to say. I found it so beautiful and so moving. And to think that film was lost. Like this little tiny masterpiece, these people had no expectation of being anything more than dirty movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And Mary Mendham is like a little miracle.
Yes.
That she came along right at the end. See, Joe was struggling then because porno had destroyed softcore.
Right.
The theaters did not want a softcore movie. They wanted porno. That's why Joe had to make that. And as you know, he put his toe in the water. Tina Russell and those people, and she really loved Joe.
Right.
But he really wanted to make the softcore because Joe told me this himself. He said the minute the sex, meaning the porno, explicit sex, the minute that comes on screen, people are not watching a movie anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're not making, there's no movie, so you don't need a filmmaker to make these movies. He knew that in his gut. It was over.
Right.
All you just it's just footage.
Yeah.
So to think that Mary Mendham came along and she had that intensity, I mean, she also, I think, was not entirely well psychologically in some ways.
I've heard that.
High stress person, but maybe somebody who was close to having clinical issues.
Yeah.
I'll say close. I met her late in her life. In fact, there's a picture of me sitting on her couch with her. She was lovely, but a little fragile, and you felt a little sad around her. But that was her persona, and it was so powerful in those films, like in Misty. She's wonderful in Confessions.
Yeah, Abigail Leslie, she's amazing.
Abigail Leslie,
so good in that.
So,
but also another through line with all of those is, I'll bring her up again, Chris Jordan. I worship at the altar of Chris Jordan, and she's so good in everything. And then, like, I've only seen the trailer for Misty, and even when she's in the trailer in Misty, I'm like, oh, that's completely unlike every other character that she's played in Abigail Leslie and Confessions and Jeannie. Right. Like, it's such a diverse filmography because Joe wouldn't cast these people in types all the time.
Right,
they were given opportunities to do something different. With these projects.
That's right. As you guys know, he worked consistently with certain people, and I don't think there's any theory behind that. Like, he wasn't coming out of the theater and thinking we're a repertory group. It was just convenient. They would show up. I'm going to write another. Well, Mary will show up. All those people in those mid-60s.
You can trust them.
They would show up. And he also knew pretty much what they could do, right, Alex? He worked with you once. He had a sense. Doris Wishman used to call it taking direction, right? Oh, she took direction.
Right.
Joe was invested in the same notion deeply. And Joe, there was even I would say with Doris, there was a little bit more time to fool around because Doris's movies are improvised. You never even saw a script, right? You didn't know what you were doing when you showed up at her apartment. Just remember to wear the same blouse, right? That's all you knew, right? Joe had this very rigorous script. He even had the shots.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a shooting script. He even wrote them into the script. This will be a medium close-up. He knew that this whole speech would be delivered in this shot. It would be a medium close-up. And I'm seeing Alex on the screen. Alex, you're going to walk up behind and you're going to talk over their show. It was all in the script. So there was no fooling around. It was bing, bing, bing. So he knew that people could remember their lines. They weren't all great actors. Do you agree? Not all of them.
I agree. Barbie Kemp didn't really need to be in these, right? Yes.
She had her role. Yeah.
She had the wig. She could show up with the wig, man. She could show up with the wig.
Yes. and her see-through catsuit. That's all you needed, right? Yeah. Right.
You know, it's funny. I just mentioned Doris. Doris's niece, Judy Kushner, who had many links to Doris over the years when Doris was working. She was living with Doris at the time. That Doris worked with Barbie Kemp, and she got to be friendly with her, you know. And she said she was a nice Jewish girl from Brooklyn, is what Judy remembered. She didn't know her background that well, you know. But I mean, she was not a very dynamic actress.
No, and gorgeous though.
Yeah, there were many people who worked with Joe were not tutored, but also not gifted. But the people who were, for me, are you know, very, very magical in that respect. Chris Jordan and Rob Everett, and you guys probably know that they were a couple.
Yeah.
And also were in the Linda Lovelace Stag Loops before Deep Throat.
Yes. Before she said no more hardcore and let Rob keep doing hardcore. I'm only going to do softcore. Right. She made that choice. Right. They
almost launch hardcore and then they reject hardcore.
Yes. Exactly.
And Rob is still out there going strong. I mean,
yes. Yeah. I just actually spoke to him. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Good. He made a comment, I think, on YouTube, not on Facebook, on something on YouTube not too long ago, and I just happened to notice it, and I jumped in and I wrote porno royalty here, folks, you know, and he wrote, oh, thank you. I don't think people knew who he was, you know, but you know, they were in New York to be actors, Chris Jordan and Rob Everett, so they had a sense of craft and a different sensibility about it than some of the people who really were. You know, they could ham it up, but they were there for the stumping, so to speak, right?
Right. Well, and another example I can think of that is, well, you mentioned Linda Lovelace being good in Deep Throat too. I always think of the big example of Joe working really well with actors who are not actors is Tina Russell, where she's somehow able to be funny and touch a genie, and then dramatic and sleepyhead, two completely different, a religious uptight woman, and this like up positive, happy-go-lucky like girl next door. And he worked magic with her because she's not good in anything else. She's only good in Joe's movies. She wasn't an actress.
She was the prettiest young-looking gal in the first generation porno scene. So, because, you know, don't forget, up to that time, people were still a little bit used to the kind of like hard-hearted Hannah was a stripper who did some dirty movies. You know, the woman who did sex films tended to be a little older and a little bit more weathered. So Linda was like the Brigitte Bardot of porn, right? She was the young, sexy girl who was too pretty and too nice seeming to be in porn, right? And she wasn't, but she was wild from what I understand, you know, in personal life.
Yes.
She and Jason Russell were real swingers for sure. So, but she loved Joe. If you read her book, Porno Star, you know, obviously I didn't get to talk to her. She's been gone so long. Yeah, I did meet Jason one time briefly. She loved Joe, and I think she people believed in Joe. Joe had a magical ability to convince, particularly younger people who were into the fantasy aspect, that this was important and real, and they were making a real movie.
Well, and they were getting the full script, right? They were seeing what was written on the page. Like, okay, this looks like a real movie.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's a real movie.
And they had a real camera on a real tripod. So nothing against Andy Milligan, who was a genius, but it wasn't that kind of underground movie feeling at all.
Yes.
Right.
It was very much like you got 3 lights, like it's not Hollywood, right? But you got 3 lights,
Still,
and you got a couple of dudes running around doing that stuff, Mo Odegaard and and then you got a sound man. It looked like a real movie. So it seemed very real to them. And someone like Tina, I think, is someone who just gave her best because she believed in Joe. Also, too, where it gets personal for me, like in Touch of Genie, like she's doing that kind of like shtick Jewish lady kind of routine. And I can just imagine Joe literally tutoring her. No, you do it like this. Stanley, you talk like this.
Right.
Joe literally taught her how to talk that way.
I can see that. Yes. Yeah.
And so it's like Mia Farrow in those early Woody Allen movies where I feel like she's doing Woody Allen. Like he's reading the lines and she's doing the lines as Woody Allen. I get a kick out of that. But, she was a good sport. And I would say that Joe relied on the same people over and over again until they disappeared or went to do something else because – they loved him. They really did. I never heard anybody say anything bad about Joe Sarno. Never, ever, ever. Wow. And I think he created an environment in which you felt like you were doing something as important as any other real movie. Yeah. And it was no longer just some porno movie. It was real. It was worthy work, and Joe made everybody feel that way.
Well, one person we haven't mentioned yet that maybe will tie it into anything for money is Joanna Mills. What can you tell us about her?
Love Miss Joanna.
I know almost nothing about her except I love her accent. Absolutely priceless. Maybe New Jersey more than New York. I mean, I'm not sure, but she's got a terrific accent. She's one of those people who wants so badly to be an actress and for this to be real. And I love that. I mean, it's not always effective according to contemporary standards of realism.
Right,
but it's powerful because you see that she's caught up in the mystique of this character.
Right.
But I believe I did locate her some years ago, but she was one of those people who was unwilling to talk to me. Another person from that same period is Irene DeBarry. And you probably know that she's still acting to this day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think she's a lovely woman, but also was a lovely, a more naturally gifted actress than, say, Joanna Mills in some ways.
Yeah.
More subtlety. She's got a little swing to her. She is from Argentina. But when I reached out to her and I did talk to her, she denied that she was ever in any movies made by a guy named Joe Sarno and that she had only started her movie career.
Her name is right there in print in the press book.
Yeah, her name is on some of the credits. What Casey or any of you guys remember what she used like one or two other pseudonyms?
It was like Monique something. Yeah. I wrote them down actually in our show notes. Let me see. Okay, she did Sonia Valley, Monique Dravon, Christina Delon, Renee Valley.
There you go.
Lillian Dillon. Yeah, so she used fake names on everything except for this one.
She was trying to and it gets used, and that might have been a mistake. It could have been whoever put the press
probably was
didn't get the memo. I mean, she wanted to have what people call a legitimate career. I totally respect that. I'm not interested in outing anyone. It never was, but she denied that she had ever worked in these films, and I politely said, "Are you sure?" Because also I have a picture of you in a fairly recent. This was maybe 15 years ago, but I have a picture of you in a fairly recent film. Like, I think it's you, respectfully. And she's like, "Oh no! I started making movies in the late '60s in the West Coast." And what can you do? I mean, that's part of the ethics and the tactics and the difficulty of doing research in this domain. I'm working on a project currently that does not have that kind of problem, which is a little bit of a relief. But
thank God.
working on researching sex films, as some or all of you may know, people are not always proud of what they did. There's a social stigma around it. They've gone on to do other things. Doris Wishman used to deny that she made them because she didn't want her sister to know. That's literally the whole reason.
Oh, really?
She didn't want
I did not know that. Wow.
Michael, I don't want Pearl to know about those movies. So people have personal reasons, and I get them completely. And I did successfully in a few cases explain to people, look, nobody I know thinks ill of these films anymore. And in fact, I'm contacting you because you were in some of the most interesting films of this ilk. And I want to know about the movies. I'm not interested in your sex life, and I'm not trying to,
Right.
And some people did kind of come around to it. And because there was a community of people coming along who were doing this kind of research, the word went around that you could start to talk about them a little bit more legitimately, but she, she didn't want to talk about it, which I respect. And so I wasn't able to find out too much about her past.
I mean, of all the sexploitation directors in movies, Joe's are probably the most respectable.
Yeah.
Well, again, when I first got involved with Joe's work, almost nobody remembered or had heard of him. And I mean, and Casey knows this too, even in academic circles where you met people who knew a lot about movies, nobody knew who Joe was, except maybe in the industry. And then where the industry transitioned to porn, and people like Gerard Damiano got big names. And then some of the actors, I'm sure that, you get everybody's heard of Ron Jeremy, but nobody's heard of Joe Sarno. It's that kind of thing. Joe of course, deserves to be much better known. And the wonderful documentary that those folks from Sweden, made about Joe helped to get the word out about his sincerity. But he was really unknown. So it was tough in some ways to turn people on to the project in that way, because nobody had heard of Joe, But they weren't forefronted. There was nothing in the industry that would forefront them. And the only reason that Damiano, I would say, got pushed to the fore as an auteur was because it was so important to defend that film in court as a work of art by a creative artist. Now, Mr. Damiano believed sincerely in his work. He was a very sincere filmmaker. I got to talk to him only one time at some length, and it wasn't so much about his work as about allied subjects related to my research. But he was an extremely sincere filmmaker. He deserved to be considered an artist. But the whole reason he became famous is because the money wanted to make sure they could defend that film in court like crazy. It had to be art. It had to be art because that was the defense, right?
Right. Something else I bring up on here a few times is that also, I think when you're reaching out to even cast and crew members who made these films, they were not on video for decades. So they vanished. So they thought, oh, no one will ever see this. No one will ever bring this up to me. And then you call them out of the blue and say, hey, I want to talk about these movies you made where, you took your top off and were in these movies that were considered shameful at that time. Yeah. And it's like, they're like, why, how have you seen this? If they admit to it, how have you seen this? Right. And why are you bothering me? Right. It's like
memories can be skewed. And memories can be skewed. They can think it was worse than it was as well. That's with hindsight, right. Things like that.
Alex, I talked to people who said they never saw the damn movie. And some of these people, the movie you're calling them about was a thing they did one day of their life in 1966.
Yeah.
That was
I say that all the time too. It was a weekend in their life. Yeah. In their 20s.
It's like you asking me, so tell me what you remember about that Red Sox game you saw in 1975. It's like, what the hell?
Right.
I don't remember anything about it.
And at least these Distripix films, at the very least, they didn't really have working titles, did they? There was just Distripix 1, 2, 3.
HF number 1, HF number 2.
I don't know what the deal was such that they were identified that way originally. It might have just been a matter of keeping some flexibility with respect to the titling, right? The distributors jealously guarded titles, which is part of the advertising campaign. So, a very important part of the advertising campaign. And probably they weren't entirely wrong, right? Directors come up with poetic and evocative titles, but these people are trying to sell sex. You know what I mean? So, when Doris made "Come With Me, My Love," I mean, you've got to be kidding me. That should have been called, Ghost Fuckers, right?
Right. Or actually, Something Weird released it as The Haunted Pussy, didn't they?
Yeah. There you go. Right.
That's our name for forever.
That's so direct, so to the point, very vulgar, but to the point.
I should have thought of that. Kudos to Mike Brainy, who I think came up with that title, right? So that's the idea. So I think that they just were leaving it loose for the time being. We'll figure out the title when we decide what we want to call it. And as you know, titling could depend on what's hot right now. Like I have a collection of accessories, ephemera, posters and stuff related to Deep Throat. And I have this whole collection of posters of films that have titles that sound like Deep Throat. And even not sex films, like a kung fu film called Deep Thrust.
Yeah.
Right.
Low budget Western called Deep West.
Yes. Exactly.
You know the game. It was like, we got to get somebody's attention, and nobody knows if this movie's good or bad. I respect that part of it. Nobody knows if they're going to like this movie, so how can I get them to go, maybe I'll cough up $3.75 for this movie, So I suspect that they just left it loose until they decided what what was it? The Magic Touch.
That was Skin Deep in Love, right?
Skin Deep in Love was originally titled The Magic Touch, and Todd Moore even let me photocopy. There was actually a press book, which I still don't have. I've
seen it,
Maybe Stephen Morowitz has it, but Todd had the original press book, which I photocopied. It was for The Magic Touch.
Well, that makes much more sense as a title.
Much more.
That's a Joe Sarno title, right? That's a Joe Sarno. That's a filmmaker's title. And then somebody came along and I don't know, when people are flipping through the newspaper in Toledo, are they going to understand that this is the hottest new sexy film at whatever the sex film theater in Toledo? You know what I mean? So they calculated according to what would get attention, and I don't blame them. Movies are not cheap to make. You got to make money.
The funny thing about anything for money is they actually say the name of the title in the movie. I don't think that's very common in Joe's.
No. And who knows? Maybe that's the source of the title. I honestly don't know. And Joe was never a good source of information when it came to real specific things like that. His memory wasn't great by the time I met him. He was already in his 80s. And again, I don't think he paid that much attention. He hadn't preserved an archive of his own scripts.
Yeah.
I have 6 or 7 of his original scripts, but I got them from actors who worked on the films. Joe did not have them. Now, it could turn up that there were some in the basement. Peggy would talk about maybe there are some things, but I'm pretty sure she looked for me at some point in the storage locker they had, which was not very big. So, but Joe, to his knowledge, to my knowledge, to Peggy's knowledge, had nothing. So, it's hard to know. It's hard to know. But I mean, I think Joe generally came up with the titles, if only because maybe some of the producers had no idea anyway. Don't forget that a lot of the producers were really just money men. They had some capital to invest. There were, I would argue, not as many ways to invest excess money as there are now, right? There weren't ETFs and Bitcoin and, all these, there weren't all, you could go play the stock market maybe, but even then was a little bit still like a rich man's game in the 60s. So, you had a dentist, you had a lawyer, you had an accountant, you had real estate.
NYU students.
And those guys, again, they were making money. You're talking about Arthur and Howard, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
As Joe would say, the movie Mongoloids. And that was their joke. That was their joke, not Joe's joke.
It was.
Right? Instead of movie moguls, they said, we're not movie moguls, we're movie Mongoloids.
That's funny.
So those guys, they got into distribution and they made some money, but also I think they knew, smelling around, I'm sure you guys know, but the independent film distribution business was totally based in New York City. Not just the sex films, but anything indie and the foreign films. Hollywood had very little to do with that. So you'd make the rounds, you'd sniff around. A lot of those offices were literally within a 15-minute walk of one another, the distribution offices. I made a map of it, I think, for my dissertation. where
oh my God! Well, I need to see that, please. Can you find that map, please?
It's primitive, but I got all the addresses, and I was like, yeah, like you could literally walk from office to office in an afternoon and meet with everybody.
Yeah. Sometimes just down the hall.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Sure, like 9th Avenue. Yeah. Film Center building, but also that the Brill building. There were offices in there, and there was that one with Barry Mahan's office.
Yeah, with no heating.
Yeah. There were a lot of them were in the same place. Michigan's office, Stan Borden's office. They were all in Midtown. It was like the music industry too. The Brill building, all there. So they would sniff around and figure out what was going on, and I bet they talked to like Shelley Wilson or something, like she was really running theaters, but she figured out that if she just bankrolled a couple films, then she could make back the negative costs in her own freaking theater. Can you imagine today making your negative cost back in one movie theater?
No.
And then she distributed around the country. And as I'm sure you know, the independent films were distributed through this network of sub-distributors, and you would sell the rights to a region for a fixed sum, and you never got involved with percentages because those people would just rob you anyway. So
like states' rights. Yeah.
Right, states' rights. So she would just, you would just say, okay, give me $5,000, and they'd get a negative in a trailer or whatever, and they'd go to town, or 2 prints in a trailer or whatever.
Yeah.
So you could make so much money. Everything after the New York run was gravy. Was sheer profit. So it was almost no risk because those guys knew that they had a captive audience with those, few theaters, the Bingo Brandts of the world, and the World Theater, those guys,
Goldworms.
They had like they were little money machines, which is good. I wish I had a money machine. Right? Again, sometimes people disparage that part of it. Sometimes I'm like, man, movies are expensive to make, and I wish I could make that much freaking money on something I produce. You know what I mean?
And get lucky and get held over at the World for like 2 months.
Oh,
if you're
crazy,
lucky, if the film's right.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember going through. It was tricky because a lot of them didn't advertise in the newspaper because why bother? It was all street traffic. But every now and then, like the Rialto or the World would advertise, like in the Village Voice, which I had access to on microfilm, 15, 20 years ago. And I'm looking at and like you'd see ads for like an Andy Milligan film, like 5th month. Can you imagine?
That's
6.
wild.
Yep.
Oh, it's wonderful. Like I'm like, oh, that is awesome, man. But also the sense that nothing coming in would maybe match it. Like you just keep as long as the weekly box office receipt is meeting some threshold, you just roll it over, and everyone's happy because Bingo Brandt's happy, and everyone's happy, right? So you keep that going. So I suspect that Arthur and Howard just understood that this is a great way to make money. You're not just distributing movies, but for a modest investment, a reasonable investment, you can then distribute this all over the country and sell the world too. They were starting to be able to sell some European territories and things like that. So I think that was the motivation behind it.
But more than some of the, producers that Joe worked with, it seems like Howard and Arthur were really involved. Like they were on set, they were helping with the costumes, and
they had a taste for it, man. They were with the show, they wanted to be in the show business. Some people didn't so much. It was a kind of an investment. They hang around a little bit, like they're the big shot because they paid for it. So they show up with some woman with tight gold lame pants,
Right.
I'm thinking of like J. Arthur Elliott and certain people Joe worked with, who were more of that type, from what I was told by Joe and Peggy. But yeah, Arthur and Howard clearly loved it. They loved it, and they thought they wanted to be around it. They thought it was fun, and they were professional jokers. Like it was, they were cutting jokes 24 hours a day. Arthur, was a no nonsense dude for real, but at the same time, he had a great sense of humor, and he and Howard were young. Don't forget too, right? So they just like college friends who have all these inside jokes and yuck, and Joe loved working with them. And also,
what did you say they were like the youngest guys Joe ever dealt with?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, in that register, I mean, usually you're talking with people who had some money. So they tended to be a little bit older because they had done something that produced some capital, you know? And again, they were certainly among the youngest, I would say. Yeah. There was later on toward the end, that one fellow, I'm not thinking of his name at the moment. He told me the whole thing was just like he was not involved in the film business at all. He was in the tax write-off business. And like the producers, right? The producers. He commented the fact that you could write off a lot of money against a production. And so people who had, an unexpected windfall or gratuitous profits from something and they didn't want to pay tax on it, they were using Misty was a tax shelter.
Interesting.
And that's one of the reasons why it had almost no distribution, because it was never made to distribute. If you showed it at like one theater, Casey, what's that fellow's name? He was down in Florida. John Rickert.
And he's gone now, so who knows who has that?
He told me that he basically just picked it up for nothing because they needed him to show it like once or twice in a theater. As long as you could show, cut out a movie ad to show you had played in the theater for a week, then you could show that to the IRS. Can you believe how heartbreaking that film? And it was just going to be shit canned because no one cared to even distribute it.
Yeah,
I hate that.
There were people who did that too, Gentry, who just came at it from that point of view. I think Joe had good relations with all of them. There was a period of time when he tended to make about 3 movies for everybody. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it was almost a pattern somewhere like that. Joe had Joe and Peggy used to joke about that. He'd make 3 and then they were done with them. But I think it was all that they could handle. It's not like Joe made 3 films over 3 years. He made 3 films in like 3 months for these people.
Exactly. Yes, he was nonstop all year.
Or the same thing happened. We talk about Jess Franco, the Spanish director, a lot, and he did the same thing. He would churn out so many. In the 80s, he was working with a company called Golden Films, and they couldn't keep up with it. Some of them they couldn't even release them.
There you go. I mean, it takes a certain amount of time to get things in the pipeline. The movie, the theaters needed product, but they're not sitting there with nothing to show. They might not be able to book a film for 6 months. You know what I mean? It might. So you can get backlogged if you have too much stuff.
Yeah,
you can't get it into and you can start to devalue the market if the exhibitors think that there's a glut of product. They're going to offer less. They were no dummies. You know what I mean? It was very competitive, and they were like, "Oh, okay, so." This guy's calling me up, and these guys have like so many films. I'll give you $100. That let's throw that out and see what happens. It was aggressive on the financial side, that market. So you don't also want to look like you're dumping stuff.
Right.
So I can imagine that after 3 films, you said, "That's all I can handle right now."
Right.
Yeah. They also just see how they went.
Right.
Also just figure out if it's worked out for you.
There you go. That makes sense too, right, Alex? Is this going to make any money? I'm betting on this making money, but will it actually make money? And then the vicissitudes of the industry, because things were changing very quickly in terms of what was permissible on screen, right? So, I mean, if you look at, it's unbelievable. It's a couple of years. You look at Sin in the Suburbs and then look at stuff. That stuff Joe's filming in Florida is like pornography. It's like
so different.
That's really up there. Yeah, that's close.
And, they were, and Peggy told me they were actually fucking.
Yeah, like off.
Joe was just framing it so you couldn't see it, but it was porno.
He allowed them to. Yeah, right. He wasn't saying you should fuck. He was just like, hey, if you guys want to, go for it, right?
No, and those people did. I'm not even 100% sure at that point if he proposed it. I think he recognized as things were moving that way that was probably the way to go. But I think it just turned out that they didn't give a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a different world. There's a secret history to Miami Beach in that respect. South Beach.
There is.
South Beach is not a party place because people there are nuns, and that whole Bunny Yeager thing and the nudist camp thing. People were going down there to be wild. It's what happens in Miami Beach stays in Miami Beach. So I think even there was a different culture than there was in New York. It was a couple years ahead of New York in terms of how loose people were.
It always has been sort of, even the 90s. It was a big rave scene there. And
there you go.
Big Bill scene. Yeah.
Right. And there was no pretense that, I'm here to be in the theater. It's like, where do you want us to fuck? We want to get back to the beach, like that. People in New York still had some idea that, this is New York. We're in the film industry. I think about Mary Mendham. I mean, and Radley Metzger was very taken with her too, right? Like there was real potential there because she had something special.
Oh yeah.
And somebody maybe in some way could have crossed her over in some way, So there was that sense. But Florida, I don't think there was anybody down there thinking about it at all. Like, you did some nudie pictures for Bunny Yeager, and her stuff she didn't want to admit it, but it got hotter and hotter too, right? And
yes, it did. That
was really all you did. And that circles back to Linda Lovelace and Chuck Traynor, because they're going down to Florida. That's where Linda Lovelace is kind of groomed, to be quite honest, right? Is down in Florida. She's a girl from Queens. She's a girl from Queens. It's funny. Deep Throat is 100% a New York production, and yet the whole thing is Florida.
Oh, Florida.
Right? Yeah. They shoot it in Florida, So I think that Joe. Of course, we know that Joe was deeply invested in a type of realism. He wanted people to really feel what they were doing on screen. And he was very intense about that. But he was also careful when it came to the obscenity laws. He didn't want to take a bust. I think he was respectful of people. So that was a line that a guy of Joe's generation probably didn't think it was permissible to cross that line with any amount of ease. I think he waited for other people to establish that norm. And he didn't want to work in creative reasons as well. But I think it just didn't make sense to him. But that having been said, and I'm sure you know this, Joe was a very sexually robust fellow in his personal life. And I know not from Joe, who was a gentleman, but from some of the women that he was involved with, that, Joe had relationships with some of the actresses who worked. Peggy, obviously, he was involved with before he married her. But I mean, a couple of the other women I know, he had shorter term relationships with. So it was a sex thing for Joe. Making sex films was not just 9 to 5, punch the clock. It was, Joe was involved in them sexually, I would say. I say that by being involved with the women who were in them sexually.
Yeah. I know I've heard stories about the Sweden period for sure. Him and Peggy were having a good time.
I wasn't there. I don't know. It seems very likely. It seems possible. I mean, I don't know that Joe was what I would call a sexual libertine. He was a very much a man of an earlier generation, but also I think women found him attractive, and there was something about those guys who came back. See, people talk about the swinging 60s and the sexual revolution of the 60s, but it really was, it was the parents of those people. Those guys who came back from the Second World War, and the Sin in the Suburbs thing ain't about hippies. It's about people who lived through the Second World War and were now living the 1950s American dream, and part of it was this looser, part of the affluence of middle class culture was sexual delectation. That was happening, and Joe was part of that generation, and let's say a relatively successful practitioner. But I don't think he was doing.
That's a good way to put it.
I don't think he was doing the eyes wide shut stuff. I really don't.
Yeah, we don't need him to be doing that.
And Sin in the Suburbs might suggest as such, but I think Joe would have told me, and we talked about swinging culture. I think he would have told me if that was going on. I think so. Maybe not. But I never got a vibe off of him that he was that guy. maybe I got that read in part just from.
But he liked to write about it, though.
He
Clearly.
did. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And he had some awareness of it. Like, again, things that are so archaic to us, like local houses of prostitution, right?
Yeah, yes.
There actually was a big
exchange.
There was a prostitution ring got busted out on Long Island. I found the news stories about it in the early 60s. Nice. Was it late 50s or early 60s? But Joe's stories about houses of ill repute in these sort of suburban seeming area, those are based on real topical news stories of the time. I mean, Joe, being a man of that generation, may have even visited. That was not that far out at that time.
Sure.
But there's something about Joe where I never felt, and he would pay lip service to this notion that I believe in sexual freedom and the sexual revolution, and I would even pay lip service to that sometimes, talking about him like he was one of the engineers of the sexual revolution. Yes, through the cinema, through a type of sexual representation, but just knowing the guy, I never felt like he was this decadent guy who luxuriated in sexual. Not at all. He would hole up with a girl he was into, and maybe it wouldn't last forever. But I never felt like he was a swinger, not professionally. You know what I mean? It just didn't feel right. So that's my take on him. I could be wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, I never found out that he lived that way. And then. When these younger people who came along, I think he thought they were wild. I mean, he found it amusing, but
yeah.
And I dealt with some people who were, let's say, Joe's age, and I think he talked about this. Ed Seaman, the pioneering New York
Eduardo Samano. Yeah,
he was totally into that. Let's all meet at Betty Dodson's house and fuck 18 people in the same room. He was a guy of Joe's generation. He spoke about it pretty openly, so I don't think I'm outing him,
He did, yeah. He was very open about it.
Yeah, there were people who did that kind of stuff. Joe didn't do that kind of stuff. And that's not a judgment call. It just wasn't Joe.
Yeah.
Wasn't Joe, as far as I can tell. But yeah, his fantasy life, Gentry, was quite rich in that respect. Quite rich. Although, then you sort of get the same 5 stories over and over again, right? Like the recycling of these certain these certain experiences too.
Well, the other recurring theme is always these like roadhouses. What's the deal with these places?
Right. Again, there's a little bit of that low grade organized crime connection.
Yeah.
Really, where they got involved in illegally importing booze, probably even more so than the local bootlegging. The what's their name? The Brofmans from Canada, Seagram's whiskey. That's the cornerstone of multi-billion-dollar fortune to this day. Is all that whiskey just went out, in ships, and one got sent to Boston and New York and stuff. Though they got into the roadhouses because they had the booze. Right. And then, of course, they got into the entertainment industry, the burlesque theaters, Las Vegas, because they had the booze and the singing. Right. What's that wonderful? For some reason, I always screw up his name. I won't go off on a big aside, but, you had those big nightclubs with floor shows and that kind of stuff. So Joe may have had some limited connection with that culture, but also don't forget, the roadhouses are not urban, right, Gentry? So Joe's really admitting a lot of the time that he's not a city boy, even though he was born in New York City. He really was raised in a very, Casey, have you ever had occasion to go out there to Amityville?
No, because it's a hike to get there.
It's a hike. No. I literally visited the home where Joe was raised twice. Once with Peggy. Joe's his childhood friend was living in there. Joe sold the house to this guy, Henry Markley, who passed away now several years ago. But I was out there twice. I mean, that house is almost like it's upper middle class. I mean, it's like $1 million mansion, which in New York now is probably a $5 million mansion, right? So, I mean, it was a relatively affluent neighborhood, but also there was this whole port culture there because it had been important, for fishing and things. So you had your little rough and tumble part of town, but Joe, within 20 minutes, Joe probably could have circuited that whole area, and there probably was some shack in the shabbier quarter where there was some probably older and probably not terribly attractive lady who would service you for $5 or $3. Those places existed. And I think Joe was aware of them. But what I love about them is it's not about sin in the city. It's about sin in the suburbs.
Right.
And that's really who Joe is. And that's what he knew about. So, yeah, you had to know the house over on Thompson Avenue where the lady was caged.
Yeah. You had to know a guy.
Yeah, right. It was that kind of, and the roadhouses were a suburbanized version of that. They didn't want them right in town because the town fathers thought it was too disreputable. But, they would build it over here, and everybody knew to drive over there for a good time, and you could have fun over there, and you could make a mess over there, and it wouldn't reflect poorly on the more stable, healthier community.
It's funny. In Joe's movies, he never does like an establishing shot of like where this place is, but you do get the feeling that it's not in the city. It's a little off the beaten track a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, there were practical reasons for not doing establishing shots because he's shooting in a living room, right? So that, Gentry. And also, Joe hated shooting in public in Manhattan. That I have right from him because for a lot of reasons. One, there's no place to plug in. Don't forget these old school cameras. Like, I mean, with an Arriflex, which was small and portable, that's a 35 millimeter movie camera for people who don't know. That was a newfangled device at the time. You can put that on your shoulder and you have a battery pack that weighed about 500 pounds and you could run it off of a battery. But if you had like an old Thompson camera and the lights, where are you going to plug in those lights? So there was no place to do any of that stuff. It was a real bitch to shoot on the streets of New York. That's a little side line of mine is independent filmmaking in general in New York, or maybe a big sideline of mine. But also then you're shooting on the street and you're trying to get this done real quick for money reasons and other reasons I'll talk about. And then some kid's going like, he jumps into the shot, right? So there goes so much footage. There goes so much time. Joe told me that. He hated that. He said the public would look at the camera. Some kid would, it was a real novelty to see something shooting on the streets of New York. And then also there was a union issue, which was noteworthy, right? And important. The unions, the craft unions in New York particularly, were interested in protecting their jobs and the pay and privileges that went along with that. So we're guys who are all advocates, right, for low budget independent filmmaking. So in a way, they might sound like the bad guys, but if you look at it from their point of view, they humped to negotiate these contracts that would allow them to make a decent, consistent living. And the last thing they wanted were a bunch of scabs running around shooting all this crazy stuff on the streets, non-union. So there were real concerns about that. And you probably know that there were only so many rental houses in New York where you could get professional equipment, cameras, lights, microphones. And you had to pretty much show up there like on a Friday afternoon and sneak it out the back door, and you could get it for the weekend and get it back Monday morning because the Teamsters had a contractual run. Only the Teamsters were allowed contractually to move that equipment around. And so it had to be a union shoot. The Teamsters wouldn't deliver to a non-union shoot, so you had to sneak the stuff out. So there were union issues as well. Even, Actually, some of the guys who worked on Joe's films in the mid 60s, Mo Odegaard, if you recognize that name, who also was an actor.
Yeah, he worked on this one. Yeah, he worked on Anything for Money, yeah.
There you go. Also was an actor. He's in that movie I always loved, Slapshot.
Really?
Is he?
Yeah, he's one of the referees at the end. He's one of the.
I need to check that out now. Okay.
Yeah, check him out. I'm sure it's in his IMDb, but it's fun to see him because you're like, oh yeah, that's Mo.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, I met with Mo a few times, and he was real helpful to me. But Mo was involved with helping to organize NABET, NABET, which was more like the TV craft union. But they were willing to bring in all these independent people. When the IA, as they called it, IATSE, IATSE, they were very incestuous. The locals, you could only get in it if your father was in it. It was one of those kind of unions. At least I've been told so. Right. So NABET said, "Oh well, guess what? We'll unionize anybody who's working in the film industry," and they were like, "Great," because now they could get union benefits, a union contract, and that stuff. So it was right around the mid-'60s, and Mo told me that he was pretty involved in that. I think Bruce Sparks also, who went on to work, for TV. He worked for NBC for a long time. And those were regular jobs. Don't forget, as prolific as Joe Sarno was, the film industry in New York was not dynamic enough to support most of these craftspeople full time. So, like somebody like, I think of Chuck Smith, C. Davis Smith, who shot Doris's movies. He always told me, a Doris Wishman movie was braces for my kid. A Doris Wishman movie was a new sofa. It was not a living. It was something you got on the side out of your regular employment. So that was true for almost everybody. I mean, maybe Bruce Sparks for a couple of years worked enough for Joe that it was his whole employment. But, go work for TV or something. Now you've got a weekly paycheck. You probably have a pension. You do have a pension. You might have health insurance. That was a totally different world. So there were good reasons to have unions, but the unions were kind of the enemy of people like Joe Sarno in the early to mid 60s. And it wasn't until New York became much more, ironically, domesticated as a film production center, that it weirdly became easier, because now people weren't so uptight. And Woody Allen and Sidney Lumet and Martin Scorsese and all these people were making movies all over the place in New York City. It was a little more normal to see a film production. And also the police used to shake you down. So the police were not coming up and shaking you down for $20 if they saw you shooting on the street. So it got a little easier.
They would just ask for a part, right? They'd be like, can I be in this? Can I be an extra in the back? Yeah.
They just wanted $20 in an envelope. That's all they wanted, I understand. But, whatever. It was an extra hassle for them, too. So I'll even cut the cops a break. Now they got this thing on their beat. That doesn't exist anymore, right? The cop on the beat. But they would walk around a certain neighborhood, and it was their job to keep things normal in that neighborhood, So they noticed unusual things going on. It was when the film office got started in the late 60s that things got a lot more domesticated, is the way I put it. And it might not surprise you, but I become a little less interested in filmmaking in New York right around that time, because I like the Wild West.
Yes.
This unpredictable, undisciplined kind of filmmaking.
It's funny you mentioned that, because now that I think back, there's not a whole lot of Joe Sarno movies where he's like on the street filming.
Unless it's in Queens, or Brooklyn. It's not in Manhattan.
Yeah, they're in neighborhoods.
They did that.
Like a dirt road sometimes.
They did that film down by NYU, the building with the columns. Which one is it? It's the one with the art, the Greenwich Village.
Oh, Newton Charcoal?
Newton Charcoal?
Oh, no, later.
Artist. Was that Wild Pink Horse? That's That's another artist one.
Oh, okay.
Really?
That was shot at a building that's right near NYU. And I think there's they would steal like a quick exterior every now and then. You could go out handheld with the Arri, and you could just get something quick, just to mix it up. I mean, Joe knew enough to feel like the film shouldn't be totally claustrophobic. So he would try to feel something real quick. It was a lot easier, though, and this is outside of his suburban orientation, it was a lot easier to say, go back out to Amityville. There he could talk to the chief of police.
Yeah.
Joe Sarno grew up there. He was on the football team. He was a war veteran. They knew who Joe was, and they knew who Dominic was, his father, who owned that big house and had lived there forever. Joe could go say, I'm going to shoot something over here, guys, down by the water. Don't worry about it, Joe. Not a problem. So that's why another reason why he would get out of the city is because he knew it would then he could do exteriors and not have to deal with that hassle.
Right. What's this 2-story house and Anything for Money? Do you have any guesses where that was shot?
No, I don't. I mean,
because it's a very distinct location.
Yeah, I looked at it again relative to this interview. It's it could be out there on Long Island. It makes sense, but you don't know. Yeah. It could have been. We know they used, was it Arthur's uncle's house or Howard.
Yeah, I think it was Howard's aunt and uncle. Yeah.
Yeah, so those kind of serendipitous locations would just, we need a location. What are you gonna? I mean, God, when I produced that last Doris Wishman film, just before you have no friggin' idea what we were trying to do, literally shoot. And I called in every favor, but actually, so we got some cool locations. I don't think Doris ever had so many locations, because she never had a dummy like me running around 24 hours a day trying to find her an ice cream parlor and a public bathroom, and that.
Well, that documentary is great. That documentary that was done of you doing that was really terrific. Because it really showed like this is what happens when you have more people involved trying to make this the biggest movie she ever made.
I was, in a way, it was misguided because we should have just done it in a living. Although 2/3 of the movie are shot in one house that we rented. Right. And we turned the garage into a set. So we built different sets in there and we used the bedrooms in every corner. Fred Schneider from the B-52s is in the corner of this stupid suburban house and a bunch of high school kids were living in. At any rate, I mean, college kids. But Joe, there were lots of good reasons for Joe not to try to go and shoot in the streets of New York. And he wasn't trying to be like an underground interventionary filmmaker. Like there was nothing about making a statement of that sort in his style.
Right.
But the other side of it too, which was something I did want to mention in this, Gentry, was, I think of some of those wonderful claustrophobic framings and how important they are to what we now call Joe's style. Mm-hmm. And by the time, like Steven Silverman, who's Peggy's brother, by the way, by the time Steven started shooting for Joe, he's the one who most aggressively does the tight framings with the super, super low-key lighting. Yes. And so they're literally carving
that passion in hot hollows.
Yeah, they're like sculptural, like vibrations. I'm very passionate
vibrations.
About film.
Yep.
The films become really sculptural. You literally have a little piece of white wall and Steven's lighting, and the bodies themselves become abstract at a certain point. If you go there, if you have a mind to go there, which I kind of do, and I'm like, this is so beautiful, and it's like Edward Weston photography. But done in a very vernacular, gritty, we don't know we're doing this, but we're doing this kind of way. Yeah. And Steven, I think, is responsible for that because he was just willing to put in the extra effort to try to work with those exposures and the limited lighting. It's a little tricky with old school 35 millimeter. People today, pull one of these out and you can do anything with that, right? And the lighting doesn't matter.
Yeah.
35 millimeter is intractable. It's hard to work with.
And those lights were big and heavy to move around and fix, like just everything.
You got it. And then controlling them, I mean, they could have those snoods and little things. Stephen would get these little snoods, they call them, a little tunnel that you would attach to the front of one of those big, like, Fresnel lights. And it would bring the light down to a flashlight size thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I wondered that. Okay.
Jerry Kalogoratos, this Greek cinematographer who worked with Joe, like on Moonlighting Wives and what's the black and white?
Is it The Swap? Did he do The Swap?
No, before the one that was lost for a long time. I'm getting a little aphasia.
Naked Fog, maybe.
Naked Fog, yeah. He and Tony Lover worked with them. Jerry, I met Jerry, and he made stuff with tinfoil because they didn't even have the professional equipment. So he would get this wrap, black wrap.
Wow, yeah.
And he would make these snoods kind of out of black wrap. So, like, go look at Moonlighting Wives. That's they got that same kind of chiaroscuro kind of effect in color.
Yeah, which is hard.
Yes,
hard.
It is good. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jerry was a trained cinematographer. He went. He was Greek, but he moved to Italy and he studied at the. I'm not going to get it right. Centro Sperimentale, the Cinematografica, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
right.
That was the main national film school in Italy. So he had some idea what he was doing, but also he had no budget. He had no tools. So he was the one that did. You look at some of those shots in Moonlighting Wives, and it's like just the woman's face.
Yeah, like circle right on her face.
There's a highlight on it.
Yeah,
I love that myself. Because, this is where Joe's filmmaking meets some aesthetic sensibilities of mine, which is one of the reasons I became passionate about his work. It was a meeting of the minds, although I think I'm the one who had the articulate ideas about what's going on, and Joe just was doing it, and I admire that more than having articulate ideas.
Yes.
It was just intuitive.
I love that anybody who does something that's just out of the norm and that also doesn't really make sense given contingencies like finance and resources, that's the thing that grabs me. Like somebody who should just make, Joe should have just been calculating enough to say, let me get a couple of girls to throw off their clothes, and I'll do a handheld 16 millimeter thing. And as long as they have decent tits, and we have them go dance, and some stupid shit. And you've all seen sex.
We've seen those movies, yes.
Like, we mean like a Barry Mahon movie? Yeah.
Just spend $3,000 to $5,000.
Casey, I'll defend Barry. He's a little special. He's a little more.
His film, at least his film his cinematography is stable.
Right.
It's not handheld, right?
Herschel Gordon Lewis, like there's a kind of flat, negligent flatness to the stagings that I kind of like, because
I like that description. Yes,
they're like a bad community theater production with nudity in them or something.
Yes,
but I mean, it's more like the unknown and deservedly unknown fly-by-night people who made one or two of these low sex, and you're just like, what the hell? Like
Joe Landwehr. So
a lot of those American film distributing titles,
a lot of American
some other distributing stuff,
and then the million Distripic softcore films.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So
it's just one light.
So we know who we're talking about when we say the million Distripics softcore films.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So I'm trying not to name names only because what's the point? Like, maybe there's something, they could be nice people. It's people.
Sure.
But there were some terrible films there. And anybody with half a brain, I bet you if you had somebody around, like if Arthur were around and you said, did Joe's films make more money than those? He'd say no. Most of the time, no. So Arthur knew they were better. And I think he liked that they were better. I know he knew they were better. He said so. But also he knew that on a work-a-day level, when you got your ledger book out, Joe's films are prestige productions for his particular enterprise. It's like Hollywood did the same thing, right? They made B movies all fucking day long. They didn't care. They didn't care. But twice a year they let John Ford make a movie, right?
Exactly.
Because it's got to be art. Don't you know the cinema is an art form, Artie? It's an art form, right? Yeah. And then they invented the Academy Awards to pretend they weren't basically selling sex and violence. That's basically the story, right? So, but of course there are accidental, anyway. I like these movies that shouldn't be good, but they are, because somebody didn't quite know what they were supposed to do, and they did something unique, and they even did it in a way that almost didn't make sense. And that's Joe to me. Like, Joe might have, if he had been calculating, he would have said, oh, I just need to pay my mortgage with this. Let's do this. He went to all this effort to craft this very clean little gem of a production. And then through some force of his personality, force is the wrong word because he was very gentle, he convinced everyone around him it was wonderful. It's like somebody like Andy Milligan, so different, and I mean wonderful, right? But like literally beating, beating and beating people, and there's something to that. Like, some people really need to be forced to feel this. Joe somehow elicited it through this different vibe. And it really worked. And I love that about Joe's work. And if you know anything about the other films I admire, it's the same story, right? They find a different way to do everything wrong. Doris Wishman, my God rest her soul. The Unintentional Genius, right? Yeah. She had no fucking idea. I used to watch this with her, and she'd say, we'd show her movies in theaters. People would be laughing. I understand why they're laughing. I wish they didn't, but I understand.
I know. Yeah.
And we finally stopped taking her into the theater because she'd say, Michael, what the hell are they laughing at? And I lied to her. I said,
poor Doris.
I think they smoke a lot of pot before they But
good save, Michael. Good save.
Yes. She didn't get it. She did not know that her movies were so blessedly unique that people, even casual people, were like, this is weird. This is crazy, right?
Yeah, well, what did Chuck say? Like, she never even looked through the lens of a camera. Like, that was
no idea. Yeah. And when we worked with her on that last film, that was a big issue. We're looking at these video rushes, and she's like, Chuck, that's not how it looked. And he said, Doris, that's because you were standing over on that side of the room, and you had me over here. And then he was getting old and crotchety. To his credit, because he had enough Wishmen for a lifetime, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so we insisted, we made Doris stand next to him for the rest of the film because she was literally saying crazy shit like that, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was done with it. It wasn't all fun, that production.
No.
So it was life changing, and it made me a better person in 1,000 ways. But it wasn't all fun. And I earned my chops, I think, when it comes to low budget filmmaking. I can talk trash a little bit about the process because I at least did it one time. Actually, I did it twice.
Right.
I don't know if anybody ever heard of Nubile Nuisance, that other movie that I was involved with.
I have, but I have not seen it.
Taylor Mead and Todd Moore were in it.
Yes, that's why I wanted to see it, because I wanted to see Justin Todd back on the screen. Whoa. Yeah, that's why I wanted to see it.
Yeah. The same fellow, a real saint who put up money to make Each Time I Kill, wanted to do something with some of these other sexploitation people, and I got to know Taylor, when I came into New York around 2001, I was so enthused to be here, and there was still the remnants of that 60s world, although I found out half the people were in Florida, ironically, right? I was flying down to Florida once a year, but so I got to know Taylor, and, I'm interviewing people. I got to know Todd, a lovely guy. And, and also, do you know who Dick Towers was?
Yes.
Chesty
Morgan, of course. Chesty Morgan. He was in Rosebud for Roberta.
Right, and he's in Last House on the Left.
Yes,
he's the guy with the chainsaw. He's the father with the chainsaw.
Gaylord St. James.
St. James. He lived around the corner from me, literally in Hell's Kitchen when I located.
Wow.
Oh, whoa!
In a kind of a group home for people who technically had psychological disabilities. And he was a little odd, but I think he just lied his way in there so he could basically get subsidized or free housing. I got to know him. So this fellow who financed the film was so stoked to meet Gaylord St. James that he planned the whole idea of making a film around just getting to know him and making a movie with him. And then Taylor Mead, so funny. I mean, to mix those, but I'll say this too, there was a little cross hybridization between the New York underground, the avant-garde underground of Jonas Mekas and that world, and Joe Sarno, which you guys probably know. And that's how Joe got to know Peggy in the first place.
Yep.
And how he worked with Louis Walden, who was part of the Warhol contingent, because David Stone, who had produced The Hills, decided,
Norman Mailer too. He did those Norman Mailer movies too.
There you go. Right. He had decided to, for whatever reason, maybe because he wanted to stay in business, so he needed to make some money. He decided to make some other films, and he founded General Studios, and that's where those Joe Sarno films, the Swap, and
I've been wondering a lot.
Love Merchant, right?
Right, Love Merchant. Yeah. That's where they came from, General Studios, and that's where Michael Alimo came from too, because he was very involved with that newsreel documentary movement. They were like kind of radical anti-war activists and stuff. And his wife was working at the Filmmaker Cinematheque tearing tickets, and they all got wrapped into the Joe Sarno thing, and they loved Joe dearly. It's not like they felt like they were taking
slumming it.
Yeah, exactly. They thought it was a gas. And Michael, who's in anything for money, is one of the few sort of, obviously I'm an actor kind of actors, and he loved to do comedy. He was doing live street theater, was a big thing he did at the same time. A lot of it political, but with humor, like very broad kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can see that.
And he went on to he went on to went to the West Coast to do TV. He had, something like a legit career after that, doing some little TV parts and stuff like that. But he was a lovely guy, and he worked with Doris,
Indecent Desires. Oh yeah.
As Doris always called him, the homeless man who has an apartment, by the way.
Right, exactly. This bum who has a home, right?
It was this poor homeless man who takes this doll home. But he was, a lovely guy. Joe attracted good people because he was good people. He was decent. sincere, loving. The first time I met Joe at his apartment was to interview him about some of the actors he worked with, because some of them had worked with Doris, right? I know you guys have some similar interests. And then we talked to him. He didn't remember anything. Mm-hmm. And then I said, this guy I just loved him. I just loved him. And so I contrived some reason to go back again. First time I met him, he shook my hand and brought me in and we talked. The next time I met him, I opened the door. Michael, he gives me a big hug, like I was his cousin he hadn't seen in 5 years, And it was like that. And it was like that with everybody. He was a lovely, lovely guy. And you trusted him and you knew he had integrity. And the fact that you knew that made it possible, I would say, for him to make movies, even and especially in the early 60s, when very few people who had any scrap of decency or who expected to have any kind of a legitimate career would have ever agreed to be in what was a sex film. And then
you don't get a Patty McNair unless you're Joe Sarno.
No,
there you go.
No.
She was, I have limited knowledge about her, but she was probably trying to get a singing career going. I mean, she was from the Midwest, came to New York to try to be something. I mean, I think of those Tammy Latour. I mean, I think of
Tammy Latour. Yeah,
people like in Moonlighting Wives. I mean, these women were. They were not women who had already made a name for themselves in sexual culture in any way. Right. Now, they might have also been sexual women personally, by the way. I sort of suspect that might be the case. They might have been women who were fairly sexually active and something made sense to them about Joe's project, and maybe something made sense to them about Joe, because I know he was involved with a few of them. But there was no notion that you could become a porn star or anything then. So that's where I think who Joe was made the biggest difference. Later on, you could find all kinds of young chicks to throw off their clothes and roll around on the floor and do a sex film. It was not a problem. Joe found genuinely unique, interesting, oftentimes very talented people, for sure. Yeah, sometimes, not. We won't talk about Horn of Plenty. But
oh right. Well, Laura Cannon's in that though. Laura Cannon's great.
She's the greatest. No, she's
yeah. But that's an exception to the rule in that movie, right?
Yeah, I know. But she's not given a chance to act really. And again, she's one of those Mary Mendham types. There's tremendous pathos to her. I mean, Fleshpot on 42nd Street. What a masterpiece, and she contributes to that so profoundly. You just have to shoot her, and you got a movie.
Yeah.
You know what it was.
Yeah. And another NYU grad, Michael. She went to NYU just like we did. So good people.
And Tina Russell, very briefly, right?
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that.
Tina Russell, very briefly.
Yes, that's right.
And some, and some other people. And now, given what I'm pursuing currently, Todd Phillips, who's one of Gigi Allen's.
That's
why you're posting all that Gigi Allen stuff.
I'm writing Gigi's biography. I've interviewed 250 people about Gigi.
Okay. Wow, that is wild. You sent me some really good clips. I think you sent me a clip of was it Wendy O. Williams? You sent me a clip of a performance. It was a short performance she did.
Oh, well, that was shot on the docks of New York with the Plasmatics. And,
yes, that was incredible. That was great.
I'm forgetting the names, but a couple of the people who shot that, go check out the
people.
They're porno people. And of course, they're just cameramen taking a job. But they're some of the better known porno people that you'll recognize. Anyway, without getting into Gigi Allen and that kind of
stuff. Mr. Allen. Well, actually, another name that I wanted to ask about, just because she was around the same time, was Sheba Britt, and she also kind of crossed. She was with Sam Stewart, who was with Doris. And so those worlds keep colliding between Sarno and Wishman.
So interesting that Sam never worked with Joe and that Sheba never.
Yeah, that is funny.
Very strange.
I was lucky enough to interview both of them, but Sheba a couple of times, and Sam was not he was very nice to me, but not a guy that had a great memory. Or a lot of introspection, I would say, but very generous and shared.
Yeah, Lisa Petrucci said the same thing when she talked to Sam.
I interviewed Sam too, Lisa. I found him and I interviewed him, and I told Lisa, and she was like, I think she wrote like "Gimme"
She has a crush on him.
Or something like that. She's just the best person in the world. So I was delighted.
Yeah, she's great.
And I knew she would love Sam. But Sheba was, one of those people I really took to. I mean, she had a real wonderful, she's so good in Marcy and in Passion and Hot Hollows. She really blossoms as an actress. And I find, again, her performances to be painfully moving. Again, in these little no-budget sex films, to see it's like a flower growing up out of a crack in the sidewalk. You know, she was very sweet, and she did tons of nude modeling and taught me a great deal. She's one of my main sources for what I know about those modeling studios that were around Times Square.
Yes,
she worked there regularly, and there was this Caribbean guy, black guy from the Caribbean, not African American. He wasn't American, right? Who ran one of these studios, and she loved him dearly. She worked for him. He had been involved in music and stuff, but somehow he drifted into photography and then realized he could run this racket where he could rent the cameras to these guys and rent the models.
Yes.
Alice Denham, who I knew well, who worked with Joe early on and was one of the first Playboy centerfolds. She worked at those places. June Roberts worked at those places. Sheba knew June, pretty well from those gigs. You can find, you've probably seen those 4x5 photo sets that they were selling in adult bookstores at the time. Audrey Campbell, who I literally just, ironically, one of my Gigi Allen friends, because I know a lot of musicians now, was going to digitize all of my Audrey Campbell interviews finally after 20 years. I just looked at the date. It was 2006 when I was meeting her every week to interview her. So we'll get that stuff finally. But, those people worked at those photo studios. So Sheba gave me a real education about all of that stuff. She was a lovely lady with this sweet Southern accent. She and Sam were like, they hated each other. That's gossip. They were like stuck living together as old people who hated each other. Also had a son who's an actor, who...
yes, I've spoken to the son briefly. Yeah.
Okay, good. I hope he's doing well. I never met him, but I thought, boy, it must have been a little bit of a crazy family.
Well, because we did an episode on Girl from SIN, and we did research into Sam and Bob Oran, and he posted pictures of the two of them together. And so I messaged him, and I was like, tell me about your dad and Bob Oran. And then he has a poster of Murder in Mississippi in one of his pictures. And I was like, that's so odd because your parents met on that movie. I didn't tell him this, but I was like, they met on this movie where he sexually assaults her. And then they got married and had a kid, which is so crazy.
And I know. At least Casey will appreciate it. But Sheba told me that Mary O'Hara, who worked with Doris, right, another man, was very good friends with her, and that she was like they were using Sheba's apartment as like Doris's dressing room. Then they were going over to Sam's apartment to shoot scenes for that film, Oh
my God.
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
Of course, I walked all around those places in New York, I found their buildings, you can see them they're so when you look close at the movies, you go, oh yeah, okay, they're walking right by Sheba's building right now in an exterior, that kind of thing.
Right.
So it was fun.
That's wild.
It was fun getting into the weeds and that kind of, I even went out into Queens where Doris lived with the infamous Lou Silverman, right, her second husband. And I found the location where exteriors for Indecent Desires were shot. There's this business about Michael Imo coming to this door that's supposed to be the door of Sharon Kent's apartment. I found it's the back of a building that's behind the building where Doris was living with Lou. I just walked around till I found the fucking.
Wow.
It was really fun. It was really fun. And you could see why they shot there because it's just like a little residential road. Like no one would have bothered them,
Right.
So anyway, those women, God bless them. The early ones, I think, came to be actresses and drifted into these lower budget films that gave them a chance to act. I would say by the mid 60s, things were loosening up enough with like the beatnik, Greenwich Village loose lifestyle thing becoming normal enough that you started to find people like June Roberts, who was doing nude modeling for artists and paying her bills with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Harry
Reid,
Gentry. I'll tell you real quick about the finances of this. It's only a few years later. Harry Reams told me that he could pay his whole rent for his apartment in New York City for a month shooting loops for one day. One day's work.
That's wild. The good old days.
That was a different New York, right?
Very different. I
think Peggy told me her apartment was $40 a month in Greenwich Village in the early 60s.
Oh my God. Oh my Lord. That's still, even with inflation, that's still cheaper than it would be today.
We need to do the calculations.
It's still way cheaper.
Those women were, I think, living in a world where they were marketing sexuality a little bit more. And then later when the porno thing came along, things blew wide open. But you had those 60s generation people, young people coming into the pipeline. And then the older people like Joe were already middle-aged, and you either went with the flow and you got into the harder stuff in the porno, or you dropped out. Joe, as you know, made the transition. We could talk all about, although I'm not always a fan, but we could talk all about the huge number of hardcore porn films he did on video and that kind of stuff. It seems a little sad in some ways.
That might be a separate episode. Yeah.
Joe was paid a very good salary for that. He was literally paid a salary. It wasn't just piecework. He was paid a salary, and that allowed him to keep making films for many years. So I'm grateful for that part of it. But the lighting and all that stuff was just not worth commenting on. I think there were some interesting folks who worked with him whom I've spoken with, and I respect them and like them. But the filmmaking was not what it was before that.
No.
Yeah. And I think that's because, if I can add a final aesthetic observation, when you make an art form too easy, it's not interesting anymore. There has to be something to resist. There has to be a problem to solve, and there have to be limits.
That's part of the reason why new movies don't interest me a lot of times. Yes.
Right.
Me either, and I'm sure I'm missing some fine films.
Yes, I say the same thing.
Yeah. But it's not worth wading through most of it for me to find them, and they'll find me one day if there's a little critical mass of some good films. Like when I was teaching cinema studies, which some of you probably know I did for several years. One of my students mentioned these latter-day Terrence Malick films, and
I've heard they're not good.
No, they're incredible.
Oh, are they good?
Oh yeah, I'm crazy about
really.
These are he did like a concert type of film, didn't he? Record some. Do you know what I'm talking about, Michael?
Well, I'm talking about like this trilogy he made, right, where he was doing all of these films that are all premised on discontinuity, and the audio tracks are never synchronized, even though sometimes it's like the actors he's working with, it's their dialogue, but everything is sliced and diced in a million ways, and everything is jump cuts. But it's all about the visual and oral experience. And the thing that interests me least about narrative filmmaking are the narratives. I haven't been talking so much about what great stories Joe wrote, because I frankly don't take that much interest in it. And that might be a deficit on my part. You could go talk to other people who want to talk about the literary aspects of Joe's work, or even the thematic aspects. Like, some things interest me, but it's not, my thing is formal.
Sure.
The audio-visual experience, like I realized I figured out what was good about Stan Brakhage films when I was getting middle-aged and my eyesight started to go, and I needed glasses, and the blurrier they got, the better they got. They were about flashing lights, motion and lights. And to the extent that I saw that, I was like, whoa, these are like a trip, man. But when I was trying to hold on to the images and hold them still and see what's happening, it wasn't working. So anyway, Joe's work is a great example of how somebody dealing with significant technical and budgetary constraints, and maybe even some conceptual constraints. Joe wasn't that far out a thinker when it came to art making. When you gave somebody the ability to make a film, but they had to do it within certain boundaries, and what you get is a testament to their effort to solve these problems. And then the icing on the cake for me is when they can do it again. And again.
And he did, definitely.
Now you have a style. Now you have Joe Sarno. Now you have Doris Wishman. Now you have Andy Milligan. Now you have a style. And I love these unintentional, purely organic styles. That's, to me, it's the best.
Well, you mentioned audiovisual. One thing I wanted to ask you before we start to close out is this Anything for Money, the percussion in this movie. This is very distinct. You said Howard Farber was doing that?
Yeah, Howard Farber.
Who came up with this idea? Yeah.
Right. So Howard Farber was a drummer. He played the drums from the time he was a kid, but Joe said he was a drummer. And also there was a song, a pop novelty song from the 60s that you may have heard called They're Coming to Take Me Away.
Oh, Lord. Yes. Napoleon something.
Or something.
Yeah,
right?
something like that. Napoleon 16th, right.
I should know when I have the single, right? Well, go listen to it. There's this repetitive drum beat. Well, Howard Farber is the drummer.
So
really? So Howard's a drummer. And don't forget that Joe doesn't have any clear solutions to the soundtrack problem when he's planning a film. He doesn't know where that's going to come from. So he was able to get music from people like Stan Free and Burton Green and people who were in New York. Somebody knew them and they were approached and they probably had some recordings. And Joe could wade through that. Now, to his credit, Joe was not big on the library music.
That's true.
It's there. It's there. Doris Richmond lived off of library music.
Absolutely.
I love watching some of Radley Metzger's early films and hearing all the Doris Richmond cues in them.
I know.
Because they went to the same people, right? So
that's what I love about New York's exploitation.
Right.
It's all the same familiar songs, right?
Right. Or music from music that you hear in Let Me Die a Woman and Andy Milligan films. I mean, it's very incestuous, right? Because it's the same library catalog.
Yeah.
So Joe did fortunately seem to frequently get real original music in the films, but I assume that when it came time to figure out what kind of music should be in these HF production number 1, number 2, Howard probably said, I can play music. And that's where it came from. And it's free, right? It's free.
That's true.
And this maybe gets back, Gentry, to what I was saying. It turns out to be a serendipitous question. It's fucking awesome because particularly when somebody figures out that drum beat can be like a heartbeat. So you have these seduction scenes, you know what I'm talking about? And it's boom, boom, boom. And if you're sitting, and if any of you have had, I hope some of you have had the opportunity to see some of Joe's films at least once or twice in a movie theater.
Yes.
It's so powerful.
Yes, a few times.
Like it's your heartbeat. You are getting seduced. Because it's, seduction isn't just pleasure, it's fear, right? Everybody who goes back to those early experiences, it's a little terrifying. And there's something about that heart rate. And so Howard's stupid drum, nothing against Howard and his drumming, but you know what I mean? It's very remedial. And it was probably done just to save money, right? It turns into this powerful aesthetic tool that makes these scenes so effective. Really great. So that's my understanding of where it came from, Gentry, and my reason why I love it. You know, music, as you all know, can really fuck up a movie.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or just, because I think we did an episode on fluctuations where that soundtrack has either too much talking or too much moaning. And I mentioned in that episode, I was like, Joe really knew how to work with the right amount of music and also how to use silence really effectively.
Right. And
the mixing's great.
He's an accidental minimalist. Accidental meaning there's no theory behind it, right? So there's that stark staging, there's that stark mise en scène. There are those tight framings. There's that limited use of music. Every now and then Joe even told me, what was the film? He said, he fucked up my movie with that music. I forget what it is.
Inga, probably. I think he was mad about the Inga music because that's what Jerry Gross got a new musical score.
That's right.
Yeah, had some rock songs.
Thank you. It's so many years since I taled with people about some of the stuff that I'm not remembering. Yes, that's right.
The commentary, he's like, this isn't my music. Right. He's like, this isn't my music. I was like, okay.
By the way, I'll throw this out too real quick. Joe tried to make a musical, right? That never got released.
I believe Step Out of Your Mind?
Step Out of Your Mind.
Right.
Oh, that's what that was.
And Step Out of Your Mind. And here, this is the American Breed.
Oh my God, the American Breed did the song?
Yes, and they actually had a single with it. And Joe worked with some very interesting people in that movie who were very much part. Like they were people who were like dancers on the old Hullabaloo show. That's a whole story. I actually interviewed so many people, but there were a lot of people in that film. I interviewed so many people for that movie. At one time, I used to joke that I said I know more about Joe's Lost movie than I know about most of the films. But at any rate, Joe did try to make a musical, but he was very he wanted music to be as limited as his visual elements, I would say. And so even you hear them turning down the tracks when there's a busy jazz track, because that was the easiest thing to get, was some kind of jazz track. He would turn them down. So yeah, that sensibility is what always turned me on. And the fact that it kind of happened organically is to me the most powerful thing. And that's true, by the way, for me in popular music. That's true for me in painting. My whole aesthetic worldview that's the key to the whole thing. So, you can predict everything I will like. You can come see my puppets made by outsider artists I have on my wall.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
My whole thing, it all ties together. And don't ask me why. Because I grew up as a hick in New Hampshire. My mother listened to like Broadway soundtracks. I could probably sing the whole West Side Story soundtrack for you to this day. I wasn't raised to be interested in anything either far out or sophisticated. And yet somehow it just made sense to me from an early age that this stuff is the real stuff.
Well, maybe that's a good segue to ask you, what's the future with the story of Joe Sarno?
Sure. It's a question that needs to be answered because it's been so many years. I found it very challenging, and I guess you could say impossible up to this point, to put my research together in a comprehensive book because, frankly, I didn't know what voice to adopt. Some people are lucky in that respect. They seem to have an organic voice from the beginning. Since we're talking about, sexploitation, I greatly admired Jimmy McDonough's book because he had a clear way of explaining himself. And also he lived the life and he walked the walk. So he was there, so he lived it, but also he could articulate it in a way that felt real to me. It didn't feel like someone's homework assignment. I never felt like I had that voice. So I sort of went through a process of trying to strip things away. And I'm still engaged in that process in a sense, but I'm about to launch, I guess, my definitive experiment because and I'm also reinventing myself as a publisher, right? I no longer teach. I haven't done that for a few years now, and don't intend to go back to it. But I schemed many years ago to create a publishing entity to publish my own books. The idea was going to be that my Doris Wishman biography would be the first book, and my enterprise is called Retrographica, which that's been my email address for like 15 years, so you can tell how long I've been thinking about it. But I was never quite sure what voice to adopt. I think my dissertation on Doris does a good job of stripping away a lot of what I didn't want in there, a lot of me that I didn't want in there, and just tries to lay out the facts. Although part of that was a reaction to the fact that people back in the day had a lot of unjustified theories about what influenced Doris and what she was thinking, and who were your influences? And did you watch Bresson films? There's that. You'd meet people like that in colleges, and they were well-meaning, but they just didn't get it. No. So I wanted to lay out the meat and potatoes, like what are the mechanics of filmmaking on this level, and also to make clear to more intellectual people that filmmaking is not an intellectual pursuit. It's a fucking go out there, get grass stains on your knees, fix a broken camera, somebody doesn't show up. It's that kind of a pursuit. And I don't care if you're Stanley Kubrick, it's still that kind of pursuit, right? It's just an intractable medium. And so you can fantasize all day about what you want, but what you wind up with is what you get, right? And also we'll talk about photography another day, but pictures are what's there.
Yeah. Right.
You can fake it a lot of ways, but pictures are what's there. So I thought that people at least needed to know what the actual reality of the production conditions were for a Doris Wishman movie. And then I was collecting Joe in tandem, and Joe is bigger than Doris. He made so many more films, so it was a much bigger thing. And I was always filing that stuff away on the side, barring finishing the Doris book. So now, to prove that I'm crazy, I'm creating a third book, but there's a method to my madness. I started to talk to people about 4 years ago about G.G. Allin because I saw him perform in New Hampshire in this dive bar in 1982, and I wrote a long article about it for this zine that my friends and I were publishing out of our dorm room. And I forgot about him for 40 years, and he wasn't that important to me even at the time. Musically, although I've found some very good things, I didn't think much about that early stuff. But that was the craziest show I ever saw, that show. Like, I was into punk music, but I won't say I was a punk. I also liked new wave music and industrial music. And, at the same time, I'm going to the Boston Symphony Orchestra and hearing, I liked all kinds of interesting music. So I was the craziest show I ever saw, but I met some people from the latter day Gigi sphere, and they were real nice people, and they were really, really invested in him and his memory. And so I started interviewing them because guess what, Casey? I have a little bit of experience interviewing people, right?
No shit. Yeah, right.
if I have one kind of go-to talent that doesn't make me uptight, it's interviewing people.
Yes,
so
which is great.
I started to talk to people, and they were nice, they were smart, they were insightful, and outside of just a very couple of people who have very specific stories, and you're not going to believe this, every one of them loves Gigi to this day. They think he was an awesome guy and a nice guy and an intelligent guy. So I began to realize as I talked to them that I'm doing the same thing again, trying to figure out what some crazy nut job who's misunderstood what he's all about. But I realized that these people were actually telling the story, and that what I really need to do is to become Rudolph Cray.
And do
and
let them go.
And I always loved Nightmare of Ecstasy, and I may need to embroider a little bit on that model, but oral history is what I have. It's what I've done well. And in the case of Gigi, people are telling the friggin' story. Like, it's incredible. Doris, it was tricky. Doris made up a lot of shit, and she didn't want to tell a lot of shit. This was my introduction. This was my what do you call it? Trial by fire or whatever. Like, I'm coming into this. I'm a very naive, bookish kid in a graduate program, not used to, I grew up very unprivileged, but I certainly did not live a hard life. And Doris, who was lovely and who was very far from the hard-boiled producer, I'm calling up people who, and I loved it. Again, I'm just old enough where I'm getting a tiniest bit of Fajic, who distributed so many of her movies early on. Jerry Balsam.
Oh, yeah.
Jerry Balsam. Yeah.
One of the few people Doris would let me talk to was Jerry, because she said she was so close to Jerry, they were like kissing kin, she said, right?
Really?
Called up Jerry, and Jerry's like, yeah, what do you want to know? Yeah. Like, he's this kind of guy, right?
That's what I've heard.
He said, Michael, my wife used to say to me, we're not in the picture business. We're in the garbage business. and I'm like, thank you, sir. I don't know how to process. I don't know how to process. These people have lived in a different universe from me. And in a way,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I respect it. I wish in some ways that I was a little bit more of a hard ass. You know what I mean? And that
it takes more experience. Yeah, it definitely.
So engaging with Doris and the people around her was challenging. People didn't have great memories. Some of them just did not give a fuck. Some of them wanted to bury it. It took a lot. The Sarno people loved Joe, so it got to be a lot easier, But again, there were many people who had had a much more hard-edged sensibility about what life is about. They were not into the art part of it at all, and didn't care if I was a graduate student at some fancy college and didn't talk that talk, you know. But I was a little more used to it, and Joe was so sweet, and many more people liked him. So I feel like now that I've reached this Gigi project, and I have a very clear pathway, literally, to get this book done by the end of the year, and I've made a commitment to doing it in various ways, so it'll get done. Now I can work my way back. Yeah. And I'm looking at these two massive boxes I have of interviews, both about Joe and with Joe, and I'm saying, most of it will be there. Most of it will be
so
there.
Gigi, in a weird way, is bringing you back around to Joe.
Back to Joe.
These two disparate artists who couldn't be more different.
Very different as people.
Yes.
But not different in the sense that they are both doing what I said before, breaking all the rules in a way without quite knowing it. And you're going to challenge that a little bit with Gigi, and you should. But Gigi was a very naive guy in a lot of ways. He drifted into something that he didn't. He was not calculating. It was just, the whole thing was a massive but productive accident that grew, that snowballed. And he was I'm from southern New Hampshire, so there's that weird link. My father lives in the house next door to where Gigi was born, the hospital where he was born. Like, there are other weird connections, but I'm exploring my New Hampshire-ness as part of this, and circling back to the fact that I'm really just a hick from New Hampshire. But yeah, I think now with Joe, I have the opportunity to do something comparable. It may need to be a little more complicated, but I'm willing to go there. And also, too, I'm sure you know, Tim Lucas, who's a lovely guy, has been working on a comprehensive book about Joe's career for quite a while. He asked me at one point if I wanted to collaborate, you know, to his credit. And I said I didn't, only because I felt I had something very personal that I wanted to do about Joe. But I have great respect for Tim's talents, you know, his wonderful a book about
Mario Bava.
Mario Bava. I was going to say Dario Argento. I knew that was right. Mario Bava. Again, aphasia. Too many names in your brain cells. Right. And I know he will do a wonderful job of really summing up Joe's career. There's some background stuff and some of the politics and things that he may not know. But so that side of Joe's work may well be very well represented as well. So I think I can do something else. And I reached out to him not too long ago, and I said, I just want to stay in touch with you because I think I have a clear vision about what I want to do. And I think we're going to do something in tandem that might complement one another. And I would be it's his choice, but I'd be happy to engage in a conversation where we could get a sense of what we're both building. And then good old Doris. It's a challenge because I knew her very well. It was very personal. I mean, Joe was very personal as well, but there was something almost like a ritual scarring with the Doris experience.
Lord.
Almost too personal not to be really personal. So I'll think about it, but I think when I get those out of the way, we can get back to Doris. And there is the dissertation as a kind of a structural as an architecture, you know, framework to get things going, at least up to a certain point. And then I'll say one other thing quickly, and I think we're running over here, so I apologize because that's certainly me.
No, we are here for however long you want to be, sir.
It's not good to go on forever. It's good to take a break, think about what people say, but I don't regret not having published my Doris Wishman book at all to date. And it's not just because I'm an asshole. This is fuck you to everybody who legitimately wishes that book existed. It's because every time I have returned to it, and this has happened since the initial manifestation, this has happened 3 times. Every time I've returned to it, a cornucopia of new information has been available to me that I didn't have before that corrected many mistakes. For instance, I suspect Casey will know, and again, I just don't know you guys, your background as well. Do you know who Raymond Phelan was, who shot Doris's early nudist films? and he made a couple of independent sort of sexploitation films of his own. Like
I've been curious about those. Too Young, Too Immoral.
Too Young, Too Immoral. Well, I acquired Raymond Phelan's papers from his estate when he died. His family gave me he was a hoarder. I've never seen anything like it. His family gave me permission to go into this house he was living in Vermont and locate whatever I could relative. It was originally for Doris, but then all of his stuff is there. He saved everything. So I acquired his papers. He edited Nude on the Moon. I have his editing script, all this shit all cut out.
Oh my God.
That's Nude on the Moon is his movie. He shot it, he edited it, and you think Doris wrote all that shit about science and rockets and stuff?
What did I just tell you guys that I rewatched this movie. and I was like, you know what? This hits
this is too good. You were like, this is too good for Doris.
I was like, this is better than I remember it being. Yeah.
Right. Well, who's credited with the directing that film? Because it doesn't say Doris Wishman.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't remember now, but is there a director?
Was it the
credit?
Silverman pseudonym?
Oh, you go look it up. And I just want to tell you this: when you find the name,
Louis Silverman?
No, it's nobody related to Doris. When you find the name, I found mail all over Ray Phelan's house with that same name on it because he used it as a pseudonym, not Doris. So
Miller and Anthony Brooks.
Doris herself is crediting him as the director of that movie.
Oh,
and he edited that movie, and he shot that movie. Now he was a problematic guy in some ways, and he refused to let me interview him. I located him while he was alive. But fortunately, I acquired all of his papers. So I got all of this stuff relative to his work with Doris that I did not have even at the time I completed the dissertation. You know the name Lou Birdie, who edited a lot of Doris's later films, and he's in Double Agent 73, right?
Yes.
He's the guy that she
right.
Yeah, in the slow-mo scene.
In the fake Las Vegas nightclub. Hey, you're a good-looking chick, right?
Yes. Yes, I love that guy.
He was her editor. He was her editor who worked for Filmright for many years, the editing house where she worked and to whom she owed a great deal of money by the time her career collapsed. I found he had died many years ago, but I dug down and I found his daughters who shared a ton of information with me about his career and even photos. So, and out of the blue, this fellow I had interviewed, because his mother had been one of Doris's childhood friends, and this is one of the only pictures I had into Doris's life, reached out to me not too many years ago, and he said, I have all these pictures of Doris. Do you want them? I have pictures of Doris when she's like 30 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Frolicking on a beach in Miami.
Oh, my God.
So
That's amazing.
I am so glad in a lot of ways that I didn't just write this book out. And I don't think there'll be a ton of new stuff. I don't have a ton of questions, and I probably have what I need. So I'm not 100% sure what the final form will be, but it's been taking shape all of this time. And I've been unbelievable things like, again, Casey, you probably did some work on microfilm because you go back that far now. You're not a kid anymore, kid.
No, I'm not. I remember I used to call these people and tell people I was in my 20s, and now I can't be like, I'm 42. They don't care if they're in their 40s.
Right.
I used to be able to use youth to my advantage, you know?
Right. I was
that's a great thing.
Ruining my eyesight on the microfilm readers in the basement of the library at NYU, going through Variety week after week after week.
Yep.
You know, all of this shit is getting digitized, and you can do digital searches now. So here's this with the help of a brilliant young woman who was helping me some years ago because it was too big. I actually got like an intern, but she was super into this and she's great. I worked with her on the Gigi project a little bit too. She was going to newspapers.com and we were literally identifying every play date for a Doris Wishman movie that we could find anywhere in the country and trying to, we know it's not complete, but trying to get a rough estimate of what films were doing better than others, what were booked more, what played longer.
Yeah.
So I could say something reliable about maybe what her more commercially successful films were. And yes, Love Toy and Amazing Transplant played nowhere.
And
And the one that literally played nowhere was Keyholes Are for Peeping, which
some things are meant to be.
And since we talked about Deep Throat,
that's your favorite.
Is my guilty pleasure. Right?
Oh, Michael.
And I just after 20 years of looking, just got the one sheet a month ago.
Wow.
I love
that for you.
Never even saw it for sale. So it's a hideously ugly thing, but I gotta have it.
Even the stills are nasty.
I love keyholes. I love it. It's so personal.
Damn.
How about this? Not a Doris Quishman interview, but I got to tell you this one quick story too. I found this guy who's Lou Silverman's cousin, Doris's ex-husband's cousin, who worked a little bit with Doris. And he turned me on to a couple of other people in his family. So it turns out a lot of Deadly Weapons was shot in his house, his father's house.
Oh.
Okay. And he's in the movie. Okay. Chesty's father, the guy who plays Crystal, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so he's a relative by marriage to Doris. Okay, so what else was that guy doing? Well, he was involved. He was an ice cream wholesaler for one thing, selling ice cream, distributing ice cream to bodegas was his real business. But he wanted to get into the music business, and his son was a musician. So his son was in a band. What are they called? I'm supposed to know. I'm forgetting it. The LinkedIn, something. Anyway, who was in the band? Steven Tyler. Do you know who Steven Tyler was?
Yes. Oh my God.
Aerosmith, by the way, supposedly was formed in New Hampshire, and it sort of was. But Steven Tyler is from Long Island, so it totally makes sense. Aerosmith, Steven Tyler used to rehearse with his first band just before Aerosmith, like 2 years before Aerosmith, in the house where Deadly Weapons was shot.
That's crazy.
So both Justin Morgan and Steven Tyler were in that house.
Have walked the same halls. That's fun.
Oh my God. That's so crazy.
These little things are so fun, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I found the guy, I found wonderful guy who was almost uncredited, who edited some of the later nudist films, who met Doris at the time of Nude on the Moon. And he just passed away this year, but he was quite old, wonderful. So much has come together that I bear the stigma of some responsibility for not getting it done sooner, but I also am so glad I didn't publish an incomplete version.
Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah.
It's all good reasons.
And it will get done, and my first plug, Retrographica Press. Eventually, in the next few years, these things will get out there because the writing them is not the problem it used to be. And I love having the creative control over the photographs and the layout and all that kind of stuff. So I'll make it something I think people who dig the genre would appreciate, and even a little bit more interesting than the standard issue kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I think these people deserve it. I consider them artists, and so it'll be cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Well, maybe to wrap up, can you, return to Peggy maybe a bit and just give us a last word on her?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Peggy was certainly more responsible for Joe's ability to maintain a career as a filmmaker than people will appreciate. And it's not because she worked on some of the films, because I think in some ways it wasn't always a great idea. And they would bicker on set and stuff about some things. But because she loved filmmaking and she loved Joe sincerely. I mean, she put up with some crazy stuff, I would say. And she came from a fairly well-to-do family. She could have married a lawyer and lived in a nice big house on Long Island or in Riverdale or wherever the hell, and had a house in Florida.
Her mom would have loved that, right?
Her mom would have loved it. And in fact, almost disowned her when she married Joe. Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I won't get into it, but Phyllis resolved herself to Joe because she was a realist. But that was not a union that either Peggy's mother or her father wanted to see. So she was dedicated, devoted to something about that man, and stuck with him all those years, and believed in his filmmaking, and she loved filmmaking herself. I'm going to say that I don't think she was the most naturally gifted actress. I said that to Joe even in the early days. But it's funny the things that hit you in moments like this. And I don't know why I feel emotional about it, but she was one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. Like one of the most just stunningly beautiful. And even as an old lady, when I knew her, I was so proud to go places with her and be her friend, in part because I was like, I know this unbelievably beautiful woman, like she could be Miss America. And I'm just this nerd, who studies trash movies and stuff. And there's something to that. I don't want people to think that's some secondary thing, like it's powerful to be very beautiful. And I think she was beautiful in a really graceful way. And even as she got older, she was just, I always thought she was stunning. And she had such a way about herself. She had gone to elocution lessons when she was younger, so she wouldn't talk New York. You know what I mean? I have a funny feeling when she was 7, she was a little more New York. I would
have loved to heard that.
I have a funny feeling when she was in her teens, she visited a certain plastic surgeon as well, to take care of a little business on the front of her face. But she was. There are photos of her from that time. I say this in part because I think that people who saw her, even like in 1960, she just took your breath away. There was something so beautiful about her face. And she was so elegant in a way, but in a kind of a put-on way, but a way that was so charming. She's called tomatoes. You know what I mean? Somebody taught her that because it's how you speak properly. You know what I mean? So that part was a put-on, and there was how do I want to put it? She loved people and cared about people. Now, she had dealt with a lot of shabby people, I would say, in the sex film business, and there were many. But she recognized people of true integrity, and she cared about them, and you knew she cared about you. She never forgot a date. She never forgot my birthday. Never. Ever. She would remember my mother's fucking birthday, okay? And there's a little bit because they were almost the same age, and I had mentioned maybe once when my mother's birthday was. It was it's a week and a half after hers. She would send me an email. I hope Martha has a happy birthday. You know what I mean? Unbelievable. She was generous, but not in a foolish way, to almost to a fault. And it sounds weird, and I made that joke a little bit to break the ice when we started to talk because I didn't want to get too worked up. So I joked about her being a drunk, and she was. She was thrown off of airplanes for being so drunk.
Peggy, oh my goodness!
Like from airplanes, right?
Wow! Oh my gosh!
She broke her toe kicking a bus once. She was. She had her blemishes, but I can't tell you how much. This is weird in a way, but how much I respect the fact that, given that debility, she was an alcoholic. I'm telling you, if she liked you and she was loaded at 9 o'clock at night and you said, I think I need to go to the hospital, she'd say, I'm coming to take you to the hospital. And she'd do it. You know what I mean? And it was not out of some mawkish sentimentals. She was that reliable. And I really respect that in people. I'm not that reliable. I'll be the first person. I would hope to be. I would try to be. But I don't know that I'm always that reliable. She was an absolute rock. So I know she kept Joe Sarno going. Mm-hmm. I know she did for a fact. And not just financially. She kept them together in a lot of ways. And when I was not doing well financially, graduate student, etc., she took me out for many lovely lunches. And a few times I insisted on paying because I actually had $50 that week. And I God damn it, I got to pay now and then. But no, she paid. American Express paid. I don't know how the bill got settled, but she was a civilized for a poor kid from New Hampshire who came to New York without knowing what he was getting into. I mean, via Boston, I didn't come right off the pumpkin wagon, but I felt like I knew a real New Yorker, and that if I needed in a subtle way to understand how New York worked, I could get that from Peggy. And she'd know she was teaching me something, but she wouldn't look down on me. And she'd take me out to a nice lunch. And I knew what a dessert fork was. I wasn't a total rube, but it just made me feel like I belonged here. And I'll tell you something. I don't really feel like that anymore. She was sort of my family here. We didn't agree about some things, but I loved her dearly. And you don't know somebody's gone in a way when you're talking about them, which is the way I talk about them, because then you're not really confronting the fact that they're gone. And it's very fresh, but I'll always have her. As that she was a friend. She was sort of like a mom, but very different from my mom. And she was so beautiful. I was kind of attracted to her. I like admitting that too. Like I was like, if I was only 40 years older, man. And I was married. I was very happily married. My ex-wife knew Peggy very well. But I think even my ex-wife understood, Peggy's a very special person. Like, if you're attracted to Peggy, you have good taste. So there are other things to discuss about her, but to memorialize her on this day when she's just passed, those are the things I can think of, at least immediately, that I think are worthy of saying. I'm sure I'll think of a couple other cool things later, but she was an amazing lady.
I know I speak for everybody that we appreciate you coming on today and talking with us.
I thought about it for about a half a second, but I knew intuitively that I just wanted to do it and just go for it. It was about an hour before we started that I got the news, and I had time to grieve a little bit because it hits you in a very immediate way. I remember when Doris died, I was in the hospital with her, that last week, almost the last week of her life. And then I had to come back to New York. I'd actually recently gotten married. My wife was back in New York waiting for me while I was down in Florida making this insane film, for 6 weeks. And I finally went back, and she died a few days after I left, but she was going. And, but in a way it was healthy because I got to say goodbye to her as a process. You know what I mean? It was quite stunning to hear that Peggy was gone, because if you asked me this morning, I would have said Peggy's going to live to be 100, man.
Right.
It's in her genes, and it was just her, so
she has an immortal quality.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
She was amazing.
Yeah. And like I told them before we started, I was like, watching these movies made me realize, I haven't talked to Peggy in a while. I should call her and see what she's up to. And then all of a sudden we get this message saying that Matt had shared that news.
She had become a lot less accessible since the COVID business, I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
I wish that she had not internalized some of that as much as she seemed to, but she wouldn't see people and stuff. And, we would communicate by email mostly. She would kind of reach out to me out of the blue. But also, I haven't mentioned this, but in my great old age, I have a 7-year-old son. He's 7.5. He would not want you to think he's only 7.
I was going to say, I didn't know you when you had a kid. Okay, and, this is brand new information.
He's the apple of my eye, and I periodically post pictures of him on my Facebook, which you might see.
Yeah.
Peggy always came in and liked those pictures. She was almost like the first person to do it. She so badly wanted me to have a kid during all the years I knew her. And my ex-wife and I, she had a miscarriage and she lost a kid. And we never actually had a kid. But Peggy was, I think, the first person we told when Allison, my ex-wife, was pregnant, and she was so ecstatic, as if I were her own son.
Yeah.
She was Michael, and she's hugging and kissing us when we go to see her. She was so crazy about it because she loved Matthew, her son, so much, and she knew how it had changed her life. And she was so happy when I finally had Theo, my son, 7.5 years ago, because she knew how life-altering it had been for her. And at least speaking for myself, she was right. It's changed everything for me in important ways. So I finally got to, and I was more delighted to tell Peggy I was finally a father than my own mother. Nothing against my mother, who's super happy, but Peggy was so excited about the prospect that it was like a celebration, So there's that, and it just feels better to remember all the good things, and I will remember, all the good things about her, and maybe it helped a lot to make today go a little easier to talk to you guys.
Yeah, that's what I
appreciate that.
Just here trying to figure out what crazy Gigi Allen person to interview next. So
the work continues. The work doesn't rest. That's a good thing. Yeah.